Chapter 859. F***CK. Which idiot kicked me in the face? Sun Zifen, who was lying on the ground, recovered from the sudden attack of the unidentified flying object. He opened his mouth and was about to curse, but when he opened his eyes, he immediately stopped the curse that was about to come out of his mouth. It's little sister Lan. Why are you here to play? That's right, what entered his eyes at this moment was a little girl in pink with bright eyes and white teeth. Who else could it be other than Lan? In the past, when Li Zixuan was teaching at the Imperial College, he would occasionally bring Lan to the Imperial College. In addition, the current Yanwang College was very close to Li Zixuan's courtyard, so Lan would come here to play from time to time. Therefore, Sun Zifen knew that this little girl was Li Zixuan's biological sister. It was precisely because of this that he hurriedly stopped the curse that was about to come out of his mouth. Little brother, you know me? I'm sorry, Lan didn't do it on purpose. Are you okay? Sun Zifen knew Lan but Lan didn't know him. The little girl was first surprised, then quickly asked with an apologetic expression. No. I'm not. Hey, Lan don't worry about him. This guy has rough skin and thick flesh. What can happen to him? Can you tell Brother Qinke where this ball came from? Sun Zifen was just about to politely say that he was fine when Li Tai, who was beside him, interrupted. This guy was still holding the ball that Lan had just kicked over. F***CK, Qinke, what do you mean? How do you know that I'm fine? Sun Zifen, who felt ignored, jumped up and said angrily. His head was still dizzy, and his eyes were still swollen. The ball just now hit his eye socket. If the perpetrator was someone else, he would definitely have punched and kicked him directly. Why would he be so polite? It was just that Sun Zifan felt a little strange in his heart. Lan was just a little girl. How could she have so much strength to kick the ball so fast? What's wrong? Could it be that Lan kicked you and hurt you? Besides, do you look like you have something to do? Li Tai did not know the inside story. He rolled his eyes and retorted. Sun Zifen was at a loss for words. He wanted to say that he had something to do, but with Lan standing in front of him, how could he say that? Hey! Sister Lan, quickly tell Brother Qinke where you bought this ball? Does the Curious Interest Pavilion sell it? Li Tai glanced at Sun Zifen proudly before smiling at Lan. Li Tai took a liking to such a delicate, light, and bouncy ball at first glance. Although he was not very good at playing football, he loved to play football since he was young. Therefore, when the ball just flew over, his eyes basically did not move away. Of course not. Brother Qinke, give me back the ball. Lan snatched the ball over and said proudly. Sun Zifen, did Lan kick you just now? What do you think? Are you all right? At this moment, Li Zixuan walked over and asked Sun Zifen, who had one eye blue. Just now, he was playing football with Lan at the side of the field. It was the kind of simple kicking. He was careless and did not control his strength well, causing the ball to fly to Lan side at a faster speed. Lan foot just touched the ball, and before she could exert any strength, the huge rebound force caused the ball to fly out at an extremely fast speed. It just happened to hit Sun Zifen, who had just climbed up from the grass. Other people were shot while lying down, but he was still hit when he climbed up. It could only be said that when some people were unlucky, even drinking cold water would get stuck in their teeth. It's fine, it's fine. Yamacho, don't worry, it's fine. Sun Zifen saw that Li Zixuan had also come and hurriedly waved his hand. Li Tai could only put away the idea of fooling the little lowly at this moment. If Li Zixuan did not come, he was prepared to trick the ball from Lan hand. Now, the original plan could only be ruined. Are you really all right? If there's something wrong, I can take you to see a doctor. Li Zixuan asked again to confirm. In the end, this matter was his fault. Although he was in a high position, he was not unreasonable and liked to receive special treatment. Sun Zifen's eyes lit up when he heard that he could be released from medical treatment. He was tempted, but after thinking about it, he still shook his head and said, "Yamacho, don't worry, it's really fine." His injury was not serious. He did not want to make Li Zishuan feel that he was deceived because of the doctor's diagnosis. The loss outweighed the gain. "Okay, since you're fine, then the two of you should focus on your military training. Don't embarrass me during next week's military training joint performance." Class 1 of Yanhuang College was personally taught by Li Zishuan. Although he was now the Yamacho of the entire academy and should logically treat all the students of the academy equally, he still had special feelings for Class 1 in his heart. "Hey, I know, Yamacho, don't worry, we definitely won't embarrass you." Sun Zifen smiled knowingly and hurriedly guaranteed when he felt the kindness in Li Zishuan's words towards Class 1. Li Zishuan smiled, took the football from Lan Er's hand, and was about to leave with the little girl. "Hey, Yamacho, where can this ball be sold? I want to buy one too." Li Tai did not expect Li Zishuan to leave so quickly. He hurriedly shouted behind him, "This thing is not sold outside for the time being. Chinke, if you want to play, wait until after school in the afternoon." Li Zishuan smiled. "Hey, this is good stuff, I want to play with it after school." Ching Chumo appeared out of nowhere and said excitedly, "Damn, Chonyo, why are you everywhere?" "Lan Er, wait outside for Big Brother for a while. Big Brother is going in to do something." Li Zishuan brought Lan Er into Guanghua Building, gave Lan Er some instructions, and then walked towards Yen Silu's office. "Yo, Yamacho is here?" Yen Silu, who was sitting in the office sorting out documents, hurriedly got up and said, "Yes, Mr. Yen, have the test papers been graded?" Li Zishuan nodded and walked into the office and asked, "Hee, Yamacho, you came at the right time, the results of this exam have just been compiled, and you came. Here, this is the summary of the results of this exam," Yen Silu said as he handed over a piece of paper filled with forms. He learned this method of using forms to record information from Li Zishuan. Li Zishuan took the form and began to read it seriously. With just a quick glance, he memorized the results of all the teachers in the academy. Yen Silla was wondering if Li Zishuan had finished reading in such a short time, but then he heard Li Zishuan say, "Yes, they're all not bad." Although the questions of this exam were difficult, there were still a lot of teachers who scored high. For example, Ma Zhou from the Economics Department scored 99 points, Su Hongji from the Mathematics Department scored 98 points, Mo Huai from the Physics Department scored 100 points, and Xiao Dian from the Geography Department scored 98 points. They were the highest scorers in their respective departments, which also showed how wise Li Zishuan was when he chose them to be the department leaders. Chapter 860. Other than the leaders of each department, the rest of the ordinary teachers also did well. There were 28 people who scored above 90 points, 65 people who scored above 80 points, and 5 teachers who scored above 70 points. Overall, the teachers of the academy did well in this exam. This shows that they have worked hard this month. Later, I'll have to trouble Mr. Yen to inform them that the results of this exam will be included in the year-end assessment. Teachers who scored below 80 points are not allowed to rest on weekends for the next month. Continue to recharge, continue to study the teaching materials of this subject, Li Zishuan said as he handed the report card to Yen Silu. Yen Silu was stunned. Included in the year-end assessment? This. Yamacho, you didn't tell them before. Li Zishuan smiled faintly. Why should I tell them? Since I'm a teacher of Yanhuang College, I have to treat everything seriously. Whether it's included in the year-end assessment or not, I have to treat everyone equally. I can't take the exam just for the sake of the exam. Yen Silu instantly understood Li Zishuan's intention. He couldn't help but praise, "Wonderful! Wonderful! I didn't expect Yamacho to be able to use the human heart to treat people at such a young age." I'm impressed. Using the human heart to treat people? Old Man Yan's analogy is quite appropriate. Li Zichuan sighed in his heart. Then, he said, Mr. Yan, you flatter me. I'm just following my heart. I don't have such a profound plan. Since the exam is over, Mr. Yan, you can arrange for the departments to start preparing for the normal classes. I won't disturb you. I'll do it as soon as possible, Yan Silu replied. Li Zichuan nodded, then turned around and went out to find Lan Er. In the evening, the bell rang to signal the end of the school day. In the principal's office, Li Zichuan habitually got up to pack his things and prepared to go home for dinner. There was a series of knocks on the door, followed by Qing Chumo, Li Tai, Li Chengqian, and the others. Zhang Sun Chong, Fang Yizhi, and Chu Yanfu were among them. Hey Yamacho, didn't we agree to play football after school? Why are you running away? Who else but Qing Chumo would dare to speak to Li Zichuan so rudely? However, this guy knew that he had to protect Li Zichuan's dignity as a Yamacho in front of others, so he didn't call him by his name. Instead, he called him Yamacho. Li Zichuan was speechless. He did say that they would play football after school, but he said that they would play football after dinner. These F***king bastards obviously didn't even eat before coming over to harass him. They were really so focused that they forgot to eat and sleep. They weren't this enthusiastic when they were studying. Run your ass. I'm going home for dinner. Why are you saying that I'm running away? Li Zichuan said angrily. Qing Chumo took 2 steps back and laughed. I'm just kidding, hee. Besides, we haven't eaten yet. Yamacho, are you not embarrassed to eat by yourself? Eating and drinking is a matter of course. Why would I be embarrassed? Li Zichuan said lightly. Li Chengqian saw that Qing Chumo was making things worse, so he took over the conversation and said, Xiaoxian, you can go back to eat first. As for that ball, I wonder if you can lend it to us to play with? This kid finally spoke like a human. Li Zichuan nodded and took out the black and white football from under the table. He handed it to Li Chengqian and said, You guys can go ahead and play. When I go down later, I'll ask Mo Zhong and the others to move the net to the sports field. I'll teach you guys how to play after I go home and eat. Li Chengqian took it, but Qing Chumo said smugly, Hey, Yamacho, you're looking down on us. Take me for example. I've been playing since I was 6 years old. You actually said that you're going to teach us how to play, haha. Li Zichuan couldn't be bothered to talk nonsense with this guy. He rolled his eyes and said, You won't say that when the time comes. Then he left the office. Hey, what do you mean? Yamacho, you have to be clear. Qing Chumo asked with some dissatisfaction, but he didn't get any answer at all. Hey, what do you mean? Yamacho, you have to be clear. Clear my ass. If you want to play, then don't play. If you don't play, then we'll play. Damn it. Li Tai took the football from Li Chengqian's hands and said angrily. After listening to Li Zichuan say damn it for so long, he finally had the chance to test it on someone else. It felt so good. Qing Chumo was furious. F***ck. Qingke, why are you talking to Xiaoxian now? F***ck, wait for me. Half an hour later, Li Zichuan had dinner in the courtyard and went to the sports field of the academy. Because it wasn't appropriate for him to do strenuous exercise after dinner, he didn't eat much at night. What? You're saying that a martial arts grandmaster can feel hungry? Isn't that nonsense? A martial arts grandmaster's legs were just a little awesome. He wasn't a god, so of course he would feel hungry. At this time, on the sports field, Qing Chumo, Li Tai, and Li Chengqian were playing in full swing. However, Li Zichuan had never seen them play like this before. It wasn't even played like this in period dramas. The few of them kicked the ball in front of each other, and the side who received the ball had to pass it to the other side before it fell to the ground. It seemed that the purpose of this style of play was to kick the ball back and forth so that the ball would never fall to the ground. Actually, the scientific name of this style of play was white hit. Although this style of play lacked competitive spirit and looked boring, it still tested the ability of a player's legs. After all, to make the ball never fall to the ground, strength, angle, and timing of the kick were all indispensable. What surprised Li Zixuan was that Li Tai, this damn fat otaku, could actually walk a few rounds between Qing Chumo and Yuchi Baolin. Looking at the way he played the ball, it looked like he had some form of play. It didn't match his previous fat otaku image at all. F***ck, Qing Chumo, why are you using so much strength? Who the F***ck can catch this kind of ball? F***ck, this ball is yours. F***ck. Son Ziffin, did you not eat dinner? You pass the ball like a girl. This ball is yours, F***ck. Li Zixuan was speechless. This little fatty kept saying, F***ck and F***ck. Where did he learn this from? Why did he sound so similar to the young lady in Chunxiang 630 in his previous life? This kid, in my opinion, other people shouldn't call him Wei Wang. They should call him Sister Wang in the future. Li Zixuan mischievously thought in his heart. Okay, stop. I'll teach you the real way to play football. Chapter 861. Yamacho is here. Li Zixuan's shout from the side of the field made this group of youths, who were in the midst of kicking the ball, instantly stop what they were doing. Yamacho, this ball is so easy to kick. Even the best ball workshop in Chang and can't make a ball with such good elasticity. Is this a new product from Chitsu Pavilion? Are you selling it? Li Tai lifted the ball with the tip of his foot. He moved closer to Li Zixuan and said with shining eyes, Sell? You're thinking too much. This ball is not for sale at the moment. Currently, rubber was a non-renewable resource for Li Zixuan. He didn't want to waste it on football. At least, before he found a stable source of rubber, he wouldn't let the workshop mass-produce footballs to sell. Why not? Even if this thing is rare, you can sell it at a higher price. If you don't want to make money, Yamacho, are you stupid? Li Tai said unwillingly when he heard this. Because he and Li Chengqian owned shares in Chitsu Pavilion, their monthly dividends were comparable to their previous year's income. Therefore, the little fatty was not short of money now. Are you itching for a beating now? Do you want me to help you loosen your muscles? Li Zixuan glared at the little fatty and said angrily. Yes. Qingke is itching for a beating. Yamacho, help him loosen his muscles. Qing Chumo shouted. Qing Chumo was already unhappy with Li Tai's, your sister, but he couldn't scold back, because Li Tai's sister was Changle. How could he scold her? Li Tai was furious. Damn. Qing Chumo, you. Enough. I'm not here to listen to you bastards bicker. I'm here to teach you how to play football. Li Zixuan clapped his hands to signal the two of them to shut up. Then he said, No matter what you called this type of ball in the past, from now on, it only has one name, and that is football. Football, as the name suggests, is a ball that is kicked by the feet. Under normal circumstances, it is not allowed to be touched by the hands. At this point, Li Zixuan snatched the football from Li Tai's hands and stepped on it. The way you play football is completely different from the way you played it before. In the future, Yanwang College would hold football matches from time to time. The goal of the match was to shoot the ball into the opponent's goal as much as possible. Every goal scored would earn 1 point. At the end of the match, the team with the most points would be the winner. If the score is the same within the legal time of the match, it would be decided according to the rules of the match. The winner could be decided by drawing lots, playing overtime, or shooting a 12-yard penalty shot. Li Zixuan saw the puzzled looks on the faces of the guys in front of him, so he turned around and pointed to the white net on the other side of the field. He said, There. That's the goal. Every side has its own goal. If you want to win the match, you must break through the encirclement and kick the ball into the opponent's goal. Do you understand? The goal was not technically difficult. The workshop made it in 1 day. Hey, This is interesting. Yamacho, is there a prize for winning or losing the match? Li Zishuan introduced this new way of playing football. Li Tai was enraptured when he heard Li Tai. He laughed. Prize? Damn, does this little fatty want to bet on the ball or win the match himself? Why does it feel like it's the former? Li Zishuan looked at him indifferently and said, Since it's a match, of course there will be a prize if you win. I say, you brat, aren't you focusing on the wrong thing? I'm talking to you about the rules of football. It's good that there's a prize. It's more exciting when there's a prize. Li Tai did not care about Li Zishuan's criticism and muttered to himself. Yamacho, how many people can each side have in this football match? Zhang Sun Chong had been in the academy for a long time, and he finally spoke to Li Zishuan. Li Zishuan shifted his gaze to Zhang Sun Chong's face. Of course, he knew that this ordinary-looking young man in front of him was the son of the current prime minister, the old fox who would have power over the court in the future. He had always been wary of Zhang Sun Wuji. As for Cui Shanfu, who often bit him, he had never taken him to heart. Because a dog that did not bark was the most threatening. He would bite you if you were caught off guard. That's a good question. In this football match, each side can have a maximum of 11 players, including a goalkeeper who will stand in front of the goal to block the ball. In the football match, other than the goalkeeper who can use his hand to touch the ball in his own penalty area, every player on the field can only use their other body parts other than their hands to control the ball. Of course, it's another case for out-of-bounds balls. Other than that, once a player's hand touches the ball, it's considered a foul. Li Zishuan chuckled and answered. What happens if it's a foul? Chu Yanfu also asked. Li Zishuan pondered for a moment and said, As for the definition of a foul, it's more complicated. I'll explain it to you in detail later during the match. Let's talk about the referee first. In every match, there must be at least one referee. The referee's role is to take corresponding action when a player commits a foul. Depending on the severity of the foul, the referee can show a yellow card or a red card to the player. If the academy receives a red card or accumulates 3 yellow cards, the player will be directly sent off the field. F***ck. So troublesome. Yamacho, let's play a game first. Let's talk about these rules while we play. There were too many rules. Ching Chumo's head was a little dizzy after listening to them. Finally, he couldn't help but shout. Li Zishuan glanced at this guy and thought that some things really had to be combined with reality to make people remember clearly. So he nodded and said, Okay. Then let's try to play a game first. If there's a foul, I'll blow the bamboo whistle directly, and then I'll tell you where the foul is. Okay. Let's play a game first. Sun Zifen shouted. He already had this idea, but he wasn't as brave as Ching Chumo and didn't say it directly. The others naturally didn't have any objections. Li Zishuan looked and said, There are a total of 8 people here. You 4 can be a team. Divide into 2 teams and experience what football is like first. Okay. I'll be in a team with Ching Chumo. I'll be in a team with Green Sparrow. In a moment, the 8 people were instantly divided into 2 teams. Ching Chumo, Sun Zifen, Yuchi Baolin, and Zhang Sun Chong were in one team. Li Tai, Li Chengxian, Li Ku, and Chu Yanfu were in the other team. This wasn't a regular game, and Li Zishuan didn't let them choose sides by tossing copper coins. Seeing that the 2 teams had chosen sides, Li Zishuan placed the ball in the center of the field, pointed at Ching Chumo, and said, You'll kick off. This is good. I'll do it. Ching Chumo excitedly came to the football, as if he had won the lottery. He looked at the opposite goal, took a deep breath, gathered his internal strength, and kicked out like lightning. Go for me. Li Zishuan didn't even have time to react before the football rushed directly from the midfield to the opponent's goal. To be precise, it flew directly to the opponent's goalkeeper, Chu Yanfu. F***ck. Are you King acting in Kung Fu football? Chapter 862. Huff Huff. Ching Chumo had just made an unexpected breakthrough 2 days ago, and he was feeling smug at the moment. His kick was really powerful, and he used up all the strength in his body. He wanted to see what kind of effect a kick with all his strength would have. The football whistled in the wind, and it even stirred up some leaves on the ground as it moved forward. It was like a tornado passing through. It was powerful and unstoppable. Oh wow, that's awesome. Sun Zifen, who was in the same team as Ching Chumo, couldn't help but be stunned. At this moment, he could even imagine the following situation in his mind. With Ching Chumo leading them, they would be invincible, give the opponent a 5-0 score, and finally win. At this moment, he was really glad that he had made a wise decision to team up with Ching Chumo. But Chu Yanfu, who was standing in front of the goal, was about to cry. Damn it, I'm here to play football, not to play with my life. He wasn't stupid. He knew that if this ball hit him, he would definitely be seriously injured and would have to lie in bed for at least a few months. Dodge. Almost subconsciously, Chu Yanfu wanted to dodge this lightning-fast ball. But driven by Ching Chumo's immense inner strength, this lightning-fast ball arrived at a distance of 10 feet in front of the goal in the blink of an eye. How could Chu Yanfu have a chance to dodge? Bam! Just as Chu Yanfu was feeling a little desperate, a handsome young man suddenly flew in front of the goal. Yes, he did fly over. The young man swung his right foot in the air and kicked the slightly upper half of the football. With a bang, the football quickly bounced back, but it didn't hit the opponent's goalkeeper, Yuchi Baolin. Instead, it flew to a place outside the field where there was no one. Huff! Scared me to death. Chu Yanfu wiped the cold sweat on his forehead and patted his chest with a look of lingering fear. Only then did he have time to look at the young man who had blocked the ball for him. Who else could it be other than Li Ku? Among their team members, only Li Ku knew martial arts. Moreover, his martial arts attainment was higher than Ching Chumo's. Thank you, Han Wang. Roar! Chu Yanfu stepped forward and was about to thank Li Ku when he heard an extremely miserable howl from the other side of the field. Everyone couldn't help but look over. They saw Ching Chumo lying on the grass with both hands hugging his butt and shouting, "Ow, stop hitting me, I know I was wrong." And behind him, Li Zishuan was fiercely kicking his butt. I told you to use your inner strength. It was just for fun. Who the hell asked you to use your internal energy? CKU. What if someone gets hurt? Li Zishuan cursed loudly as he fought. He did this for Ching Chumo's own good. That guy's kick, which contained internal energy, made the football rush to the other side of the goal at high speed. If Li Ku had not flown over to block at the crucial moment, according to the trajectory of the football, the ball should have hit Chu Yanfu's lower left abdomen. Although it was not fatal, it would have seriously injured Chu Yanfu. How could this be? Who was Chu Yanfu? He was the son of Chu Suiliang, the head of the secretariat. Chu Suiliang was good at calligraphy and had a very high reputation among the scholars. If his son was seriously injured because of playing football in the academy, the repercussions would be no small matter. Even if Ching Chumo was not afraid of anything, he would not want to get into such big trouble. At that time, Li Zishuan would also be blamed for negligence of duty. Moreover, it was Li Chengxian who had personally asked Chu Suiliang to help inscribe the plaque for Strange Interest Pavilion. At that time, Li Zishuan was still a nobody. Although Chu Suiliang was willing to inscribe the plaque for him because of Li Chengxian's face, he still had to accept this favor. At this time, Li Zishuan had made a move at the crucial moment to save Chu Yanfu from danger. In order to prevent Chu Yanfu from holding a grudge against Ching Chumo, Li Zishuan had to make the first move. With a flying kick, he directly kicked the unprepared Ching Chumo to the ground. In order to help Chu Yanfu vent his anger, he put on a fierce look and kicked Ching Chumo's but with all his strength. He was not worried about kicking Ching Chumo. After all, the butt was the most fleshy part of the human body. It was not easy to kick it. Otherwise, when you did something wrong when you were young, your parents would only spank you. That was the logic. Yes, yes. Who told you to be dishonest? You used internal energy to play football. Damn you. You deserve to be spanked. Our sister King also ran over to join in the fun. It was rare to have a chance to kick Ching Chumo's butt for free. How could he let go of this opportunity? Sun Zifen looked hesitant. He also wanted to join in the fun, but Ching Chumo was his teammate. How could he have the nerve to do something like beating his teammate? In the distance, Chu Yanfu saw that Li Zixuan and Li Tai had personally helped him vent his anger. He did not feel that Ching Chumo was deliberately targeting him and wanted to injure him seriously. That was because there was no enmity between him and Ching Chumo. The two of them even had some friendship. Ching Chumo had no reason to use underhanded means. Oh, it was underhanded means. He probably did not control his strength well for a moment. Quickly go and apologize to Chu Yanfu. If you can't ask for forgiveness, you can forget about playing football for the rest of your life. Li Zixuan kicked a few more times and said sternly to Ching Chumo. After all, this guy had almost seriously injured him. If he did not give a decent punishment, it would be hard to convince the crowd. Ouch. Okay. Yamacho, stop kicking. I'll go and apologize. Ching Chumo scrambled to his feet. When he was lying on the ground, he also understood the consequences of his hot-headed kick. If he had seriously injured Chu Yanfu, Ching Chumo would definitely beat him to death when he went back. Moreover, with the label of harming a fellow disciple, he would not be able to stay in the academy in the future. Ching Chumo limped to Chu Yanfu and said sincerely, Yanfu, I was wrong just now. I just broke through 2 days ago and was excited. I didn't control my strength when I kicked you. I swear, I didn't mean to target you. Before he could finish, Chu Yanfu waved his hand to stop him. I know you didn't mean to target me, Cho Ox, and I didn't take it to heart. It's just a game. You don't have to take it to heart. Hearing this, Ching Chumo grinned and said, Yanfu, you're straightforward. I'll recognize you as my brother. In the future, at the academy, recognize your head. I asked you to apologize, but you came to recognize me as your brother. Li Zixuan slapped the back of Ching Chumo's head. Ching Chumo cried out in pain and said, Yamacho, I've apologized. Yanfu has forgiven me. Chu Yanfu hurriedly said, Yamacho, please forgive Choox. I didn't blame him. Li Zixuan looked at the two of them, thought for a while, and said, From now on, in regular football matches, players are not allowed to use martial arts on the field. The academy will set up a football association in the future. Players who use martial arts on the field without permission will be banned for life in the entire Tang Empire. Chapter 863. After reprimanding Ching Chumo, Li Zixuan guided the group of players for half an hour to familiarize them with the rules of football. During this period of time, no one dared to use their internal strength without permission. However, those who knew Kung Fu had an advantage over ordinary people in terms of reaction time and speed even if they didn't use their internal strength. Fortunately, both sides had players who knew Kung Fu. Ching Chumo's side had 2 players who knew Kung Fu. Li Chengqian's side only had 1 player, and that was Li Ku. Compared to Ching Chumo and Yuchi Baolin, Li Ku was born in the royal family and had been practicing Kung Fu since he was a child. Naturally, the resources he had were incomparable to the other 2 players. In addition, Li Ku was gifted and talented in Kung Fu. His Kung Fu foundation and attainments were naturally more solid. Therefore, although their side had fewer players who knew Kung Fu, with Li Ku's outstanding individual ability, both sides were still evenly matched. In the end, they tied with a score of 2-2. The score of 2 in half an hour, and so many goals were scored mainly because each team only had 3 players who were fighting on the field. The field was so big that it was not easy to defend. Many times, a single player could go straight in and attack the enemy directly. That was why so many goals were scored. Beep! Li Zishuan blew his bamboo whistle and made a stop gesture. The 8 players on the field stopped what they were doing and gathered in front of Li Zishuan. Ha! Yamacho, this way of playing is too King exciting. Let's play another game. It's not satisfying at all. Football was a very magical sport. In his previous life, it was known as the world's #1 sport. It was the most influential sport in the world of sports. Football is war, modern football coach, General Michaels's words. Every man fantasizes about war from a young age. Football is the game with the highest degree of simulation of war. Moreover, it is a war between 2 armies, a war of cold weapons on the battlefield. That kind of grand narrative is very romantic and exciting for men. Compared to the previous style of kicking around and not letting the ball fall to the ground, the current style of football was undoubtedly more addictive. After Ching Chumo finished playing football for half an hour, his adrenaline soared. He was already in a very excited state. He still felt like he wanted to continue, so he suggested to Li Zishuan. Yes, Yamacho. How long had it been? Why don't we play a little longer? Sun Zifen chimed in. He was having a good time just now. Although the 2 goals on their side were scored by Ching Chumo, he had an assist, which was enough for him to be happy for a while. The rest of the people also looked at Li Zishuan eagerly. Their gazes spoke for themselves. Li Zishuan scanned the crowd and said, "I didn't say I won't kick." Now, all of you are almost clear about the basic rules of football, but there are still too few of you to show the charm of football. Go and find some more people now. At least get 2 full teams, then we'll play another game. If we can't get them together, then we'll have to play another game. Football was the perfect and concentrated embodiment of many elements, but the final measurement was extremely simple and clear. A real war was a direct confrontation of the comprehensive abilities of 2 countries, but all kinds of factors would eventually translate into the cruel and clear result of victory or defeat. Football was the sport that tested the most comprehensive ability: speed, strength, skill, and teamwork. Now, each team only had 4 people, so they definitely couldn't show the charm of football. Get them together. Get them together. Don't play tomorrow, play today. As soon as Li Zishuan finished speaking, Li Tai hurriedly shouted, "Yes, yes, yes. Yamacho, don't worry. We'll definitely get them together. We'll go and find them now. In less than a quarter of an hour, we'll definitely be able to get 2 teams together." Sun Zifen hurriedly echoed. What he thought to himself was that it would be too easy to find a few people who could play football. If it really didn't work, they could just kidnap them. The few of them could also kidnap a group of people. Yes. Then you guys go and come back quickly. Li Zishuan didn't care about what they thought. He just waved his hand and said, "Yamacho, I also want to play football. Do you think I can do it? I've been in Bingzhou's football club for 2 years. I'm very good at it." Ching Chumo and the others were about to excitedly pull people over to play football when a student with a medium build and a slightly tanned face ran over from the side of the field. The student first bowed to Li Zishuan, and then begged eagerly. Then, before Li Zishuan had time to answer, a group of students outside the field ran directly to him and said as they ran, "Yamacho, do you think I can do it? I've been playing football since I was 5 years old, and I clearly remember the rules you just said. I'm the most suitable. Yamacho. Yamacho. I also clearly remember the rules you just said. I'm the most suitable. Please choose me. Choose me. Choose me." The field suddenly became a mess. As it turned out, the small-scale football match that Li Zishuan had just organized had attracted quite a number of students who had just finished eating and were preparing to return to the dormitory to watch it. The dazzling passing of the ball, the intense and thrilling running of the ball, as well as the exciting kicking of the ball, all of these made their blood boil and they cried out in satisfaction. Even if it was only a small-scale 4v4 football game, they felt that it was wonderful. At this moment, when they heard that Li Zixuan wanted to recruit people into the team and have a formal 11v11 football game, how could the students who had been watching outside the field for so long hold back? One must know that there was only one chance. If they missed it, there wouldn't be another chance. There wouldn't be such a bouncy ball anywhere else, and there wouldn't be such an interesting football game. Ching Chumo and the others were relieved when they saw this. The group of people who came from outside the field could definitely make up 2 full teams. Li Zixuan was stunned. He had expected that football would be popular with the majority of students, but he didn't expect that the first official appearance of football would be treated so warmly by the students. Apart from this, what surprised him even more was that, from what he heard from these students, each and every one of them was a soccer expert. How could there be so many students who knew how to play football among the students of Yanhuang College? What was going on? Okay. We'll follow the order in which you just ran over. The top 14 who came here and have a foundation in football will be randomly added to these 2 teams. The captain of the first team will be Ching Chumo, and the captain of the second team will be Li Ku. As for the rest of the students who didn't make it into the team this time, please leave the field to watch the game. You'll have plenty of chances in the future. Li Zixuan didn't have time to think about why so many students knew how to play football. He looked at the sky and directly ordered, "Yes, Yamacho." Whether it was those who received the admission ticket or those who wanted to leave, they all responded and began to carry out Li Zixuan's orders. Chapter 864. The Tang people actually loved to play football. The reason why there were so many students who were good at playing football was because of the Tang people's love for football. In the Tang Dynasty, there was a traditional festival that had disappeared today: the Cold Food Festival. It was 105 days after the winter solstice and 1 or 2 days before the Qingming festival. It was said that it was to commemorate Jie Zichui, who would rather be burned to death in the mountains than accept rewards during the spring and autumn period. According to tradition, there was a ban on fireworks and only cold food on this day. In the Qin, Han, and Sui dynasties, there were more activities such as mourning, trekking, swinging, and kuju. In the Tang dynasty, the trend of cold food kuju reached its peak, and it almost became a legal football day. If you didn't go to the suburbs to play football, it would be as if the day didn't pass. In the Tang dynasty, Xuchang poet Wang Jian wrote in a poem, Palace Ci. The night's makeup remains until tomorrow, always standing by the bright sunflower tree. Cold food Kuju's wife, long by, first scatter the money in the treasury. This poem had a high citation rate in many ancient sports research articles. The Baida in the poem was a very popular non-goal kicking game during the Tang and Song dynasties. It was played by 2 or more people. Bai Ji from Xinjiang also wrote a poem, Cold Food at Luoqiao. It described the scene on the football field: Kuju's dust doesn't rise, splashing fire on the rain. Other than that, famous poets such as Wang Wei, Li Bai, Lu Yuxi, and Wei Yingwu all mentioned cold food kuju in their works. Due to the wide spread of cold food kuju in the Tang dynasty, Du Fu, who had been wandering all his life, wrote a poem, Qingming. In his later years, he lamented that 10 years of kuju will bring the chick far away, 10,000 miles of swing customs will be the same. Du Fu was born in Gongyi and had been to Luoyang, Shaanxi, Sichuan, Hubei, and other places. This showed that these places had the custom of cold food kuju. The Tang people's love for football could be seen from this. It was completely understandable that so many young people who liked to play football were born in such a big environment. There were many football experts in the Tang dynasty. Although they weren't as famous as the Song dynasty, there were still many of them. For example, Yang Jian and Wu Chongxuan were guests of the Tang Zhongzong's son, Crown Prince Li Zhongjuan. It was also because of this football atmosphere in the Tang Dynasty that the Song Dynasty produced Gao Qiu and Lu Sanfu. Beep. Li Zixuan blew the whistle and gestured for the game to start. Li Qingqian's side got the right to kick off. Li Tai saw that the other side had so many more players and knew that with his strength, there was no way he could directly break through. He did a side pass and passed the football to Li Qingqian's feet, who was only 10 steps away from him in the front left. Then, he quickly ran forward to provide support. After experiencing Li Zixuan's teachings, Li Tai already knew that in a football match, one could not show off one's bravery. This was a game of 11 people. It would be difficult for one person to have the last laugh if he or she relied solely on one person's recklessness. After Li Qingqian received the ball, he did not dare to be careless because Qing Chumo was rushing towards him. With that speed, as long as he dared to dribble a few steps, Qing Chumo would definitely be able to catch up and intercept the ball. On the field, there was no such thing as a crown prince or a minister. Qing Chumo would definitely not be courteous to him. As a member of the royal family, Li Qingqian had the best and most exquisite ball to play with since he was young. He also loved to play football since he was young, so his basic skills were relatively solid. He looked up and aimed a direction. Then, with a cross pass, he accurately passed the football to Li Huairan's feet. This was a method that they had just researched to deal with players like Qing Chumo, who had extremely strong individual abilities. It was to continuously pass the ball. This tactic, which emphasized absolute ball control, was somewhat similar to the tiki-taka tactic that Guardiola used during his time as Barcelona's coach in modern times. However, tactics were not the decisive factor in the outcome of a game. The key was whether the players cooperated well with each other. Huairan, catch the ball. After playing for so long, Li Qingqian's blood was already boiling. At this moment, he no longer had the image of a cultured and refined crown prince. His voice had also become louder. That's right. Li Huairan happened to be in the group of people who had just joined. Li Xiaogong was a martial arts grandmaster. Even if his son was not as good, he would at least be much better than the average person. There was no problem with Li Qingqian's prediction of where the football would land. He even left a small margin for Li Huairan. However, Li Huairan had just come on the field. It was his first time experiencing such a formal football match. His reactions in various parts of his body could not keep up with the rhythm. When he heard Li Qingqian calling for him, he subconsciously paused. With that pause, the distance between him and the football had become a little too far. It was too late to chase forward because Sun Zifan had already taken the opportunity to close in on the football. Oh wow! The Crown Prince team's ball has been stolen. This little guy's reaction is really fast. Now that Sun Zifan and Li Tai had successfully lost weight, no one called them little fatty anymore. Good ball. This should be considered a mistake in Crown Prince's pass, right? What a pity. Bulsh *T. It was obviously that student who was stunned for a moment and could not keep up with His Highness Crown Prince's pass. Do you know how to watch the game? If you don't talk nonsense. After seeing Sun Zifan steal the football, the onlookers outside the field exclaimed, sighed, and cheered loudly. In any case, it was very lively. These people did not have the opportunity to play in person. They could only watch from the sidelines as they competed with Li Qingqian, the country's heir to the throne. The situation here was in full swing, constantly attracting students who had finished eating and were passing by. After a while, the field was already surrounded by a circle of people. There were even some teachers from Yanhuang College. Now that they had just finished their exams, they also had time to come out and watch the fun. Beautiful. Zifan, quickly pass it to me. Qing Chumo saw Sun Zifan steal the football and hurriedly waved to the latter while shouting loudly at the same time. Needless to say, Sun Zifan knew that Qing Chumo was their team's most important scoring player. After grabbing the ball, He did not hesitate to pinpoint Ching Chumo's position and passed the ball over. He and Ching Chumo were only 3 feet apart. At such a close distance, of course, it was more reliable and effective to pass the ball over. The football was seen drawing a straight line on the grass, and was about to roll to Ching Chumo's feet. Suddenly, a dark shadow blocked the football's path. This surefire pass was actually stolen. Wow! There was an uproar outside the field. It's King of Han. So fast! I heard that King of Han knows martial arts. He used martial arts, right? Bullsh *T. What do you know? King of Han relied entirely on his body's reaction. If he used martial arts, do you think that a master like Yamacho would not be able to see it? That's right. Can you be more powerful than Yamacho? What a beautiful grab. Good job, His Highness King of Han. Look. His Highness King of Han is going to counterattack. This is straightforward. He is going to break through the opponent's defense line alone. The onlookers outside the field were completely affected by the players' every move on the field. They sometimes cheered, sometimes shouted, and sometimes sighed. This college under the setting sun was once again filled with vitality at night. Chapter 865. On the field. Li Ku was like a cheetah running with the ball. His legs were crisscrossing at a very fast frequency. From afar, one could only see the afterimages of his legs crisscrossing, as well as the wisps of grass splashing behind him. Previously, when Ching Chumo's players saw that they had control of the ball and that Ching Chumo was about to dribble the ball to attack the opponent's goal, they began to press toward the other half of the field. But who knew that Li Ku would come out halfway and intercept the pass that they were sure to get? As a result, they had no choice but to break and turn the car around to chase after Li Ku. But since Li Ku was able to intercept Ching Chumo's ball, how could he be so easy to catch up with? What's more, these people had to change directions midway, so their speed was naturally even slower. Li Ku used his excellent physical reaction to shake off the 3 defenders in the opponent's back half of the field. Then, the entire back half of the field was suddenly flat. Li Ku was delighted and began to pass the ball long and wide. While maintaining a high speed, he also ensured that he had control of the ball. At this time, he didn't need to make any fancy moves. He only needed to make wide and wide movements, rush to the opponent's goal in the shortest time possible, and finish the shot. Otherwise, when Ching Chumo caught up, the result would be hard to say. Oh wow! Han Wang is only 70 to 80 feet away from the goal. He should be about to shoot. Shoot? Why is he shooting? What kind of game were they playing? Why haven't I seen it before? It sounded like he had just arrived and didn't know the rules of the football game. You just arrived, right? This game is a new invention by Yamacho. As long as the ball is kicked into the opponent's goal, it's a score. The team with the most points wins. Oh, I see. That's quite interesting. Look. His Highness Han Wang is going to shoot. This is more ambiguous than words. At this time, Li Ku was already 5 feet away from the opponent's goal. Logically speaking, it was not very safe to shoot from this position, but it was too late because Ching Chumo had already caught up from behind. After all, Ching Chumo's legs were longer than his, and he was running without the ball. It would only take a little time for him to catch up with him. At this time, Ching Chumo was less than 5 steps away from Li Ku. He was within reach. Fortunately, Ching Chumo, a football noob, did not know about foul tactics. Otherwise, he would have reached out to grab Li Ku's clothes. Feeling the movement behind him, Li Ku did not dare to continue dribbling. He slightly adjusted his body's center of gravity and suddenly accelerated forward. He kicked hard at the rolling football in front of him. Boom! The football was hit by a huge force and made a dull sound. Then, it ran towards the opponent's goal at an even faster speed. Bao Lin, be careful! The stadium was like a battlefield, and the situation could change at any moment. Just a moment ago, Ching Chumo's side was attacking the opponent's goal. But in the blink of an eye, they had changed from the attacking side to the defending side. Ching Chumo could not stop him in time. Seeing that Li Ku had already raised his right foot and started to shoot, he shouted in the direction of the goal. Shot! Shot! That ball is so fast. It should be said that His Highness King of Han's counterattack is so fast. It all happened in the blink of an eye. What a thrilling way to play. Just looking at it makes my blood boil. If I could play in person, wouldn't that be awesome? Hey! First of all, you have to have a ball with good elasticity like that. Otherwise, after this match, it would be strange if his leg was crippled. What's wrong? Can't you buy this ball? Since it was brought by Sir, it should be sold at Curious House, right? So what if it's expensive? Why can't I buy it? Ha! You're thinking too much. Just now, His Highness King of Wei went to Yamacho to buy a football, but he couldn't buy one. How can you be richer and more capable than His Highness King of Wei? Hey! Stop talking nonsense. Look, King of Han is going to score. This ball is definitely going in. On the field, the goalkeeper, Yuchi Baolin, had already realized that something bad was going to happen after Li Ku bypassed the 3 players in the backfield. After all, he only looked honest, but he was not really stupid. At that moment, he was already prepared. In the face of Li Ku's sudden shot, his eyes were fixed on the ball flying in the air without blinking. At the same time, he was calculating in his mind where the ball was going to shoot towards the goal. Top left corner. When the ball was less than 2 feet away from the goal, Yuchi Baolin moved. He bent his knees slightly, and the developed muscles on his legs bulged instantly. Then, he stomped his feet hard on the ground, and his whole body immediately bounced up from the ground, heading straight for the ball's landing point. Li Zishuan did not allow the players to use martial arts, which meant that they were not allowed to use internal energy. Yuchi Baolin had no choice but to use the jumping power of his legs. If he could use martial arts, Yuchi Baolin would definitely be able to defend this simple goal with his lightness skills. Whoosh whoosh. The ball made a whooshing sound in the air, and the landing point seemed to be exactly where Yuchi Baolin's hands were at the top left corner of the goal. Naturally, Li Ku also noticed this. He covered his face and looked extremely regretful. The players on the field, as well as the spectators, outside the field, all held their breaths at this moment. They stared unblinkingly in the direction of the goal and guessed in their hearts whether or not the ball would enter the goal. He blocked it. He definitely blocked it. Ching Chumo had already stopped running. He saw that the ball was getting closer and closer to Yuchi Baolin's palms. He waved his arms excitedly and roared in a low voice. Yuchi Baolin had the same idea as Ching Chumo, because his hands could already feel the strong wind from the ball. Hey! I blocked Xiao Ku's shot. The corner of Yuchi Baolin's mouth drew a curve. Sigh. King of Han's shot has been blocked. The spectators, outside the field, also let out sighs at that moment. Everyone felt that the ball would definitely not go in. Even Li Ku, the initiator of the shot, felt the same way. However, at that moment, something unexpected happened. The ball that was about to touch Yuchi Baolin's palms suddenly changed direction in the air and flew toward the bottom right of the goal at high speed. Bam! The ball went in. Boom! Everyone inside and outside the field exploded, and their eyes widened. F***CK. What's going on? Xiao Ku, what did you do to the ball? Ching Chumo's mouth was agape as he asked Li Ku loudly with a puzzled look. He looked at Li Ku again and saw that the lad was also dumbfounded at that moment. This ball, how did it change direction? How did His Highness King of Han make such a kick? Could His Highness King of Han have violated the rules by using his inner strength? Don't talk nonsense. That's not a joke. The students outside the field were first surprised, then puzzled, and then began to whisper among themselves. Chapter 866. I didn't use my internal strength. The discussion of the surrounding students naturally reached the ears of the players on the field. Ching Chumo's players looked at Li Ku with strange eyes, but many people just looked and didn't dare to say what was in their hearts. After all, Li Ku was the son of the emperor. This identity was enough to make many people afraid. Hearing the discussion of the students outside the field, and feeling the strange eyes of the other players next to him, Li Ku hurriedly defended himself with red eyes. But the players with strange eyes just looked away and didn't say whether they believed it or not. Li Ku was so wrong that he was about to cry. After all, he was only a 7 or 8-year-old child. After all, he really didn't use his internal strength just now. Suddenly being criticized by the ring name, it was inevitable that his heart couldn't bear it. What's wrong? What do you mean by this? Little Ku said that he didn't use his internal strength, so he didn't use his internal strength. Would he lie to you? Just as Li Ku's emotions were about to collapse, Li Tai came over and patted Li Ku's shoulder, shouting to the surrounding players. I also believe in Little Ku. Li Chengqian also came over and supported his brother. But most of the players on Ching Chumo's side, as well as the onlooking students outside the field, were still in disbelief. Because the goal just now was really strange. If it wasn't for the use of internal strength, they really couldn't think of any other reason. I also believe in Little Ku. At this time, Ching Chumo spoke. Although he didn't understand why the football suddenly changed direction in the air, he believed that Li Ku wouldn't violate the rules just set by Li Zishuan for such an insignificant game. Even he, the captain, had expressed his opinion. The other players naturally couldn't say anything, but they still had doubts in their hearts. Beep! While many people were hesitant about this goal, Li Zishuan jogged over, blew the bamboo whistle, and made a gesture that said, "The goal is valid." The field suddenly boiled over again. What does Yamacho mean by this gesture? Stupid. Yamacho is saying that Han Wang's goal is valid and doesn't count as a foul. Then, doesn't that mean that Han Wang didn't use martial arts just now? Aren't you spouting nonsense? If the king of Han used martial arts, how could Yamacho still make such a judgment? That's true. But if the king of Han didn't use martial arts, how can you explain the ball just now? F***CK. If you ask me, who should I ask? Li Zishuan's judgment completely shattered the guesses of some of the conspiracy theorist audience members. For Li Ku, it was a timely reign. Thank you, Yamacho, for your trust. Li Ku walked up to Li Zishuan and solemnly cupped his hands in thanks. If he hadn't experienced that moment just now, he would never know how important it was to have the trust of others. Li Zishuan smiled and said gently, Little Ku, you didn't use any internal energy just now, so the punishment is reasonable. You don't have to thank me. Li Ku's goal just now was not a problem. Besides, even if Li Ku secretly used his internal energy, it was impossible to hide it from the eyes of a martial arts grandmaster. The goal just now was just a curveball. For Li Zishuan, who often watched football games in his previous life, this kind of curveball was not a rare phenomenon. But for Li Ku to be able to kick this kind of ball for the first time, he was still a little surprised. Li Ku thought for a moment and asked hesitantly, But, Yamacho? That ball just now. Li Zishuan couldn't help but laugh and said, What? You don't know what happened to that ball just now? Seeing Li Ku's expression, Li Zishuan finally understood. This kid didn't know how to kick a curveball. Just now, it was just a blind cat running into a dead mouse. It was just a coincidence. Well, yes, Yamacho. Regarding that ball just now, I also have a lot of doubts in my heart. Realizing that Li Zishuan did not suspect whether he used his internal energy from the beginning to the end, Li Ku's mood gradually relaxed. He then gathered his courage and spoke his true thoughts. Li Chengqian, Li Tai, Ching Chumo, Sun Zifan and the others who were beside him also focused their attention. Obviously, they also didn't understand why the ball suddenly changed direction. Li Zishuan didn't want to waste any time. He organized his words and simply explained. Little Ku, the reason why your ball changed direction was mainly because you didn't kick the ball in the center when you kicked it. If I want to explain it to you clearly, I have to use relevant knowledge of physics. Today I will only briefly explain it to you. When you learn physics in the future, you can naturally bring what I said to the books to verify it. Little Ku, your ball just now, I call it a curveball. This kind of ball appears mainly because the direction of your strength when you kick the ball did not pass through the center of the ball. The ball will produce a corresponding rotation. Under the effect of air resistance, the rotating ball will travel a distance around its rotation axis. When the ball is close to the goal or the opponent's player, there is a possibility that it will make a sharp turn. This has nothing to do with the use of internal energy. If the direction of your strength is wrong, even if you inject internal energy into the ball, it won't suddenly change direction like just now. This explanation made everyone confused. After that, many people were speechless. They didn't expect that playing a ball or watching a game could be related to learning. Li Zishuan, Yanwang College's Yamacho, was a bit too competent? But this way, it could be said that Li Ku was completely cleared of suspicion, so the kid was smiling very happily at the moment. Okay, let's not talk too much. Continue to play. The score is now 1 o'clock. Ching Chumo, you start. Hurry up. Li Zishuan looked at the sky and quickly said. Ching Chumo immediately became spirited and quickly agreed. Then he shouted a few times behind him. Nothing more than to let his team work harder and quickly equalize the score. In the following game, there was nothing unexpected. The only thing worth mentioning was that the newly joined players, after a few minutes of practice, their cooperation with each other became smoother and smoother. Li Zishuan felt that with the strength and cooperation of these little guys now, it wouldn't be a problem for them to play in some school or city teams in his previous life. This could only be said that the Tang Dynasty's football environment was too good, even better than modern China's. As a result, too many young people who were good at playing football were cultivated, so the quality of the players on both teams was quite good. In the end, the score of the two teams was 2-1. Ching Chumo's team won with a 1-goal lead, mainly because Li Huiran gradually became more active towards the end. He and Li Ku formed a double-striker strategy, which made it difficult for the defenders on Ching Chumo's side to defend. Beat. Li Zishuan blew the whistle to end the game, then said, Okay, everyone is dismissed. We'll play again in the future. Chapter 867. Tense, hot-blooded, exciting. This unique game left a deep impression on the teachers and students of Yanwang College. Whether it was on the field or off the field, their hearts were surging at the moment. Compared to the goalless style they used in the past, Li Zishuan's current style of play was undoubtedly more competitive and more gripping. Hoo-hoo, that's it? Yamacho, give us another quarter of an hour, and our team will definitely equalize the score. Ching Chumo looked at the temporary scoreboard that Li Zishuan made on the sidelines and shouted unwillingly. Hey! Toad yawns, what a big tone. Even if I give you another half an hour, you won't have a chance to equalize the score because we have Little Ku and Huiran, haha. As the winner, of course, he had the right to ridicule. How could Li Tai give up such an opportunity? Damn. That's because I didn't do my best just now. If you have the ability, give us another quarter of an hour to try. Ching Chumo straightened his neck and said angrily with a red face. After working hard for more than an hour, they finally lost by a goal. Of course, he was very unconvinced in his heart. Shut up. I said it's over, so it's over. Is there any room for bargaining? Hurry up and go eat. Seeing that the two of them began to bicker again, Li Zishuan angrily rebuked. Oh, the two of them responded sullenly and could only obediently retreat to their respective teams. Li Zishuan took the football from Li Chengqian and then prepared to go home. Hey, Yamacho, how do I get a football? Li Tai's eyes were fixed on the football spinning around. In the end, he couldn't help but chase after it and ask loudly. Immediately, the surroundings quieted down. Everyone shifted their gaze to Li Zixuan. Obviously, everyone wanted to know the answer to this question. Li Zixuan paused. He thought for a while and said, "In the next few days, the Academy will introduce a batch of footballs. The students of the Academy can rent them for free, but only within the Academy. At present, all the footballs are only for rent and not for sale. It's impossible to buy them with money. However, in the future, the Academy would reward the top 3 in the monthly exams and football competitions with a football. If you want it, go fight for it yourself." After saying that, he walked out of the field without looking back. F***ck. This trick again. Couldn't they just sell it directly? It's not like I'm lacking in money. Li Tai kicked the grass and complained gloomily. "Hey, isn't this exactly what you want? Chinke, your grades are so good. You even got first place in the entrance exam. What are you worried about?" Sun Zifen pursed his lips and said, "F***ck, the Academy is full of experts now. Who can guarantee that they will get first place every time?" "Zifen, you brat, it's easy for you to say that. Then Chinke, you can wait until after the monthly exams and buy a football from the students who got it. You're not lacking in money," Sun Zifen suggested in a strange tone. Li Tai was a little tempted after hearing it. However, after thinking for a while, he shook his head and said, "F***ck, no way. It's true that I'm rich, but I don't want to be taken advantage of. Isn't it just the top 3 in the monthly exams? It's a piece of cake." The football match ended. However, the exciting process of the football match had been passed around by the students of Yanhuang College. During the military training the day after, people could always be heard discussing the football match between classes. Moreover, the scene of the discussion was quite intense. In this era where there was a lack of entertainment, the appearance of football, which combined sports and entertainment, captured the hearts of many students and even teachers. Of course, the words that Li Zixuan had said before he left yesterday had stirred the minds of many students. The reward of being able to get a football for the top 10 in the monthly exam was really too tempting. Even those students who didn't like sports could sell the football to others if they got into the top 10. Li Zixuan also said that this thing was now a priceless item. If they really wanted to sell it, the price would naturally not be low. Therefore, this was a very generous profit. Many students who were confident in their own strength were holding back their anger. They secretly made up their minds that after the military training, they must study hard day and night and get into the top 3 in the monthly exams. This was the real books have their own houses of gold. "Xiaomao, is your little shop almost ready?" In the afternoon, Li Zixuan came to the academy. When he passed by a small fork in the road behind the bishop, he saw some people going in and out of a small house. When he walked over to take a look, he saw Gu Xiaomao inside. He thought for a moment and knew what was going on, so he smiled and said, "Ah, it's almost ready. Yamacho, please come in and have a seat." When Gu Xiaomao saw that it was Li Zixuan, he hurriedly went forward and greeted him enthusiastically. "Dad, this is the Yamacho of our academy. This little shop of yours is also a gift from the Yamacho." The old man next to him looked at Li Zixuan with a puzzled face. Gu Xiaomao hurriedly introduced him. The old man was shocked. He staggered 2 steps and went forward to bow and said, This old man greets the Marquis of Yong'an. Marquis has done a great favor for our Gu family. Everyone in the Gu family is deeply grateful to you." It was obvious that the old man was very emotional. He couldn't even speak clearly. "Uncle Gu, you don't have to be so polite. Gu Xiaomao deserves all of this. Who asked him to be so hard-working?" Li Zixuan helped the old man up and said with a smile. Gu Xiaomao was a little embarrassed by the praise and scratched his head. When the old man heard that his son was praised by Marquis personally, He was so happy that he couldn't close his mouth. Xiaomao doesn't have any other abilities except for his strength. Marquis, you gave him such a high salary. If he doesn't work hard, I will break his legs. Look at my memory. Marquis, quickly come in and drink some water. How can you keep standing outside? Girl, quickly pour a cup of herbal tea for Marquis. A girl's voice immediately sounded in the house. Yes, Dad. Li Zixuan smiled and didn't refuse. He knew that the girl inside should be Gu Xiaomao's sister. This kid had told him before. Because the Gu family was poor and Gu Xiaomao's mother was bedridden for many years, a large portion of the family's money was used to treat her illness. They couldn't even gather a decent dowry for his sister. That was why she was still unmarried at the age of 18. In the eyes of modern people, this situation would definitely be ridiculous. But that was the truth. In this era, it was common for girls to be unable to get married because they couldn't afford the dowry. It was the complete opposite of modern society. In modern society, it was the man who couldn't gather the dowry. Marquis, quick, please come in. Chapter 868. The last time Li Zixuan saw Gu Xiaomao was a month ago. At that time, the second phase of the Academy's project had just started. Gu Xiaomao was still the vice-captain of the 8th team of the 1st Regiment. Li Tai had always been the captain. By chance, Li Zixuan found out about Gu Xiaomao's simple ideals. Therefore, after the second phase of the Academy's project was completed, Li Zixuan allocated a small house from the Academy, about 50 square meters in modern times. It was neither small nor big, for Gu Xiaomao to open a shop. Speaking of which, this small house was originally a small warehouse used to temporarily store equipment. It was located between the teaching building and the dormitory building. The location was not bad and was suitable for Gu Xiaomao to open a shop. It wasn't that Li Zixuan was stingy and didn't want to give him a big house, but with Gu Xiaomao's current wealth, even if he was given a big house, he wouldn't be able to fill it with goods. After entering the small house, Li Zixuan sat down and looked around. He saw that there were shelves with all kinds of goods on them. There were candied fruits, nuts, and other snacks. There were also daily necessities like soap operas, sweat towels, and wooden basins. The layout of this place was like a modern supermarket. This idea was also what Li Zixuan told Gu Xiaomao. A supermarket was a product that surpassed the times and could definitely make money in the Tang Dynasty. When Li Zixuan had just transmigrated, he had also thought of setting up a supermarket. However, for a transmigrator like him, there were too many ways to make money. Therefore, he didn't have the time to do this. Li Zixuan saw that Gu Xiaomao was a rather down-to-earth lad, so he gave this valuable idea to him. Uncle Gu, I heard that Xiaomao's mother has been sick. How is she now? Li Zixuan looked around the furnishings in the house and asked with a smile. Being called Uncle Gu by Li Zixuan again and again, the old man was very flattered. He didn't know where to put his hands. At this moment, he hurriedly replied, What did my wife do to make Marquis remember her? Previously, Gu Xiaomao worked here and brought home a lot of money. This child has been filial since he was young. After he received the money, he ignored his mother's dissuasion and invited a doctor from Chang'an City's Huichun Hall to help treat her. He even bought a lot of medicine. His mother's condition is basically stable now. We can only rest and see if the root of the illness can be cured. Li Zixuan nodded as he listened. He looked at Gu Xiaomao and said, Xiaomao, your family is relying on you now. Oh, it should be your store. You have to do a good job in the future. Not only do you want your parents and sister to live well, but you also want to bring convenience to all the teachers and students of the academy. Do you understand? When Divine Doctor Sun comes to Chang'an again, I will ask him to take a look at your mother. A woman stood behind the door. She was Gu Xiaomao's sister. When she heard Li Zixuan mention her, she could not help but look up at Li Zixuan. It was not that she had any improper thoughts about Li Zixuan. It was just pure admiration. After all, which girl did not worship heroes? Li Zixuan was young, but his reputation had spread far and wide. He was a combination of wisdom, bravery, and handsome. He was simply an excellent candidate for a husband. This girl knew her own family. She knew that there was no possibility between her and Li Zixuan, so she did not have such thoughts from beginning to end. She only hoped that her brother could learn from Li Zixuan and become someone as powerful as Li Zixuan in the future. Thank you, Yamacho. Don't worry. I will definitely do my best and make this store a good one, Gu Xiaomao promised seriously. Marquis, don't worry. If Xiaomao does not provide convenience to the students and teachers of the academy, this old man will be the first to not listen to him. The old man also quickly promised. Haha, fine. It's not that serious. I still trust Xiaomao. Li Zixuan chuckled. After that, he chatted with the father and son for a while, then got up and said goodbye. After all, they still had to busy themselves with cleaning the store. Hey, Yamacho, can you help me inscribe a few words on my store? Just as Li Zixuan was about to leave, Gu Xiaomao stammered and asked loudly. Li Zixuan immediately froze on the spot. Inscribe words? What did this kid mean? Was he deliberately messing with him? The reason why he thought so was because Li Zixuan had been here for so long, but he had never inscribed words on anyone's store before. Although his calligraphy was now quite good and was better than most people's, compared to famous calligraphers like Chu Suiliang and Yu Shernan, it was still a far cry, okay? How could he show it to others? Ahem. Xiaomao. Do you want me to ask Dr. Chu to inscribe a few words for you? Li Zixuan coughed dryly and said. Gu Xiaomao trembled and quickly waved his hand. Yamacho, no need, no need. My store was given to me by you, of course, you have to give it a name yourself. This kid was really stubborn. He didn't even want Chu Suiliang's calligraphy. Li Zixuan had no choice but to nod. All right. Bring me a brush and paper. Hey. Yamacho, please wait a moment. Gu Xiaomao agreed excitedly. After a while, he brought over a brush, ink, paper, and inkstone. Li Zixuan wondered if this kid had prepared beforehand. Li Zixuan picked up the brush and was stunned again. What should he write? At this moment, the names of many modern supermarkets appeared in his mind. Walmart, RT Mart, China Resources Wanjia, Balian, Womert. But it would be too much of a joke to write down these names, because most of these names did not have any meaning to them. He couldn't harm Gu Xiaomao because of his whims. I got it. Li Zixuan's mind flashed with inspiration. He focused his mind and calmed his breathing. With a slight movement of his wrist, he wrote the 4 words Yojia Store on the paper. He was using regular script. In his previous life, he had practiced more regular script, so he was relatively good at it. There's a small shop. Hey, Yamacho, that's a good name. After staying in Yanhuang College for a long time, Gu Xiaomao could recognize a few simple words. He carefully put away the paper and laughed. Li Zixuan said happily, Kid, tell me, what's so good about this name? Anyway, as long as it's Yamacho, it's definitely good. Gu Xiaomao stuttered for a long time, but couldn't say anything. He could only laugh foolishly. Li Zixuan shook his head and said, Xiaomao? A real man should not let down the heavens, the earth, the parents, the wife, the children, and the brothers and sisters. I hope you can use this store to let your family live a good life. After saying that, Li Zixuan nodded to old Gu and turned to leave. Chapter 869. It was a cloudy Monday, October 22nd of the first year of Jingguan. It was a refreshing autumn day. Suddenly, people realized that the sky was bluer and the air was colder. If one slept at night without a quilt, they would feel cold. It was already late autumn. Many trees on the cloud mountain had begun to shed their leaves. Some mountain paths were covered with a thick layer of leaves, giving the pedestrians a sense of desolation. Beep. 12121. Today was the day of the military training at Yanhuang College. Early in the morning, the students were gathered on the field by the instructors of each class after breakfast. For a moment, all kinds of slogans were heard. Feiji, are there any students absent today? Li Zishuan turned his head and asked in a low voice. Marquis, no students are absent today. Pang Feiji cupped his hands and answered. Okay. When the teachers of the college arrive, the military training exercise will officially begin. Inform Mo Zhong, Mo Yun, and ask the guards of the college to stay alert. No outsiders are allowed to come in and make trouble today. Li Zishuan nodded and ordered. Pang Feiji smiled and said, Hey, Marquis, you worry too much. Third brother is now a guard of the college. Who dares to make trouble here? Third brother? Li Zishuan was stunned. It took him a while to remember who the third brother was. He couldn't help but find it funny and said, It seems that you are close to Mr. Zhang. You even called him third brother. In terms of experience in the martial arts world, you should call Mr. Zhang third master. You are so rude. Pang Feiji chuckled and didn't know how to respond to Li Zishuan's words. Uncle Cheng? At this moment Li Zishuan exclaimed. He quickly stepped forward and saw a man coming from the opposite side. Who else could it be but Cheng Yaojin? Uncle Cheng, shouldn't you be in the morning court now? How come you have time to come here? Li Zishuan stepped forward and asked in confusion. Today is not the imperial court's day off. Why did this old demon wander here? Cough, cough. Cheng Yaojin sniffled and covered his mouth with his hand as he coughed twice. This old man caught a cold yesterday and has already requested for a day's leave from His Majesty. I also heard that your place is very lively today, so I came over to take a look. What? Don't you welcome me? Demoness Ching would catch a cold? Li Zishuan's eyes widened. Of course, he was very suspicious, but he couldn't ask, right? He could only say, Uncle Cheng, what are you talking about? Of course I welcome you with open arms. Little rascal. Cheng Yaojin scolded with a smile, and then said seriously, Chumo is here, thanks to you, Xiao Xian. This little rascal used to be idle all day long and did not do anything serious. Only the academy can help him improve. Li Zishuan knew that Cheng Yaojin was talking about Cheng Chumo's breakthrough a few days ago with the help of Tai Chi. He smiled and said, Uncle Cheng, you're too polite. The Cheng and Li families are already inseparable. Why do you need to thank me? Cheng Yaojin laughed and said, Ha ha. What a good inseparable. Then I won't thank you for giving me the recipe for the century egg. Otherwise, I'll think that I'm pretentious. You're right, our families are already inseparable. Chumo has made a good brother. In the end, Cheng Yaojin couldn't help but feel emotional. When he first heard of Li Zishuan, it was because of the chicken that Cheng Chumo brought back for him. After that, he saw that Li Zishuan was quite good at martial arts, so he thought that there would be no harm for his son to make friends with this young talent. But who knew that this young man's rise was so fast that it was beyond everyone's imagination? At this moment, he really felt that his son was a fool for a fool. Uncle Cheng, please come up. The military training exercise is about to start. Speaking of which, you've taught these students before, so you can take a look at the results of their training. Li Zishuan invited him, although he knew that Cheng Yaojin was here today for this. Haha. No rush, no rush. You'll take a while. I'll say a few words to second brother Qin before I come back. You go ahead. Cheng Yaojin waved his hand and went to find Qin Qiong. At 8:15 a.m., all the students of the 16 classes had gathered. Li Zishuan, Cheng Yaojin, Li Gang, Yen Silu, Mo Huai, and the other core teachers of Yanhuang College went up to the rostrum. Cheng Yaojin was here to watch the show, while Li Gang and the others were here to be judges. Previously, it was said that the last class in the military training exercise would clean the academy for a month. The last class was judged by the judges. As the chief instructor, Qin Xiong was, of course, commanding from below. Reporting to Yamacho, all 641 students of Yanhuang College have gathered. Shall we start the military training exercise? Pang Feiji was wearing a camouflage uniform. His back was very straight, and he looked very energetic. He raised his head and looked at Li Zixuan on the rostrum, and shouted loudly. The first batch of students of Yanhuang College originally had 640 people. However, after Li Chengxian came to the academy to supervise the military training with the students, the number of people participating in the military training exercise increased to 641. The autumn wind whistled. Looking at the 600 students lined up neatly below him, Li Zixuan's heart was filled with a sense of heroism. He suddenly felt the majesty and desolation of an autumn soldier on the battlefield. Let's start the military training exercise. Li Zixuan said each word clearly and powerfully. Yes. Pang Feiji answered loudly. Students of the first class, all of you. Stand at attention. Look to the right. Look forward. Listen to my command, turn right, and walk in unison. The general flow of the military training exercise this time was for each class to walk out of the field, stand at attention on the track, and perform actions such as standing at attention. Then, they would walk in unison, run in unison, and change formations. Finally, all the classes would perform a round of Taiji fist on the field. The judges would give the 16 classes marks based on their performance. Under Pang Feiji's lead, the first class of students walked to the rostrum in unison. Throughout the process, none of them fell out of rhythm. The width of their arm movements were all exactly the same. Li Zixuan, Cheng Yaojin, and the others stood on the rostrum and looked at it with delight. I used to say that this kid was only training some useless things. Now, it seems, although it's still not very useful, it's really King beautiful. Cheng Yaojin thought to himself as he stroked his beard. Stand at attention. Swoosh. At ease. Swoosh. Pang Feiji's every command was met with the sound of uniform movements. All the teachers present were moved. Those teachers who had previously been rather critical of Li Zixuan's military training regime were completely silent at this moment. Every command was executed in unison. Their momentum was majestic, and they could topple mountains and overturn seas. The students' mental outlook had been completely changed by this 1 month of military training. Chapter 870. Bam! 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 Following Pang Feiji's 1-2-1 slogan, the students of Class 1 walked in unison. Looking at them horizontally and vertically, they looked like a single line. Although there were 41 people present, they looked as if they were one person. There were no discordant movements or discordant sounds. The people on the rostrum were shocked, but the students of the other classes felt an inexplicable pressure. The excellent performance of Class 1 made them doubt their own strength. They all wondered if they could perform so well when it was their turn to go on stage. Beep. After Pang Feiji led the students of Class 1 to perform basic movements such as standing at attention, taking a break, and marching in unison, he whistled. Just as he was about to lead them for a run, he saw Mo Zhong rushing in from outside the field, panting. It was obvious that something urgent had happened. Pang Feiji couldn't help but stop directing and look at the rostrum. Yamacho, His Majesty has brought all the civil and military officials, as well as envoys from various countries. Hurry up and welcome him. Mo Zhong's footsteps were hurried and could be described as swift as flying. He took 2 or 3 steps to ascend the rostrum and hurriedly called out. Li Zixuan was only a little surprised in his heart. Beside him, Cheng Yaojin's face was about to turn green. If he had known that Li Er was going to bring all the civil and military officials here to watch the show, he wouldn't have bothered to ask for leave. Xiao Xian, do you have any place here that I can hide in? Hurry up and bring me there. Cheng Yaojin said hurriedly. He was an official who had applied for sick leave. Instead of resting at home, he came all the way to the academy to watch the performance. If Old Li saw this scene, how could he, Qing Yaojin, have it easy? This was like a student who had applied for sick leave and came out to play but happened to bump into a teacher. Uncle Qing, how can there be a good place to hide in this sports field? If you really want to hide, you can only go to the teaching building. But don't bump into His Majesty. Li Zishuan sweated profusely and said to the old man. After that, he prepared to go downstairs to welcome Li Er. However, he heard Li Gang snort. Humph! You're deceiving yourself, High Duke Lu. Do you think all the teachers and students in the academy are blind? Others were afraid of Qing Yaojin, but Li Gang wasn't. The old man had been studying all his life, and what he hated the most were people who deceived others. Maybe he didn't know why Qing Yaojin was here at the start, but now that he saw this guy's reaction when he heard that Li Er was here, how could he not understand the key? Qing Yaojin's old face darkened and he said angrily, Li Wenji, since when did this old man treat you all as blind? I'm not feeling I just want to find a place to rest. You? Rest? Could it be that your body is weaker than mine, High Duke Lu? Do you still need to rest? Li Yaojin, Aojin Li Zishuan was too lazy to care about these trivial things. He went down the rostrum alone with his hands behind his back. As for the military training exercise, of course, it was temporarily suspended. He really couldn't understand why Li Er and the other officials would come here early in the morning for no reason. Didn't these people need to attend the morning court today? In fact, of course, they had to attend the morning court today. In the morning court, the envoys from the small countries from Nanyang were going to say goodbye to Li Er. After all, they had stayed in Chang'an for a long time. However, the Prime Minister of the Jiari Dynasty, Alonashun, suddenly told Li Er that he had heard from the people that Yanhuang College students were going to have a military training exercise today. He wanted Li Er to allow him to go and observe. In the beginning, the establishment of Yanhuang College was facilitated by Li Er. Now, Alonashun said in public that he wanted to see Yanhuang College. If Li Er didn't agree, wouldn't he be slapping his own face in front of all the officials? Therefore, Li Er didn't even attend the morning court. He directly brought the civil and military officials, as well as the envoys from various countries, to Yanhuang College. He knew in his heart that Alonashun couldn't speak Chinese, but he knew the news of Yanhuang College's military training exercise. He definitely didn't get it from the people. In this way, the truth of the matter was obvious. Someone wanted Yanhuang College to make a fool of itself in front of the envoys from various countries. But now, Li Er had full confidence in Yanhuang College. He wanted to take this opportunity to let the officials see the ability of Yanhuang College. So, how could he not dare to come? Your subject greets your majesty. Your subject didn't know your majesty was coming and didn't welcome you. Your majesty, please forgive me. Li Zishuan came to the front of the mountain gate and bowed to Li Er. Today was an important day for the military training exercise. Li Zishuan was wearing a scholar's robe, which was more formal. If it was in the past, Old Li would probably scold him again if he saw the short-sleeved shirt and pants that he often wore at home. No need for formalities. I brought my beloved officials here on a whim. It has nothing to do with you. Li Er waved his hand and said casually. Then, he changed the topic and said, however, as the dean of Yanhuang College's military training exercise today, why didn't I know about it? Bulsh *TUF King raised so many spies, how could you not know? Li Zishuan cursed crazily in his heart. Your subject has failed in his duty. Your Majesty, please punish me. Old Li was probably blaming him for not inviting him to watch the military training exercise. But could this be his fault? He didn't know that Old Li liked to watch this kind of thing? Has the military training exercise started now? Why aren't you bringing me and my officials in to take a look? Li Er smiled and said, "Your Majesty, the military training exercise has just begun. Your subject will bring you to watch the ceremony." Li Zishuan responded, then called Li Er and the civil and military officials to walk in the direction of the sports field. As for the emissaries of the small Nanyang kingdom, they had long been shocked by the tall buildings, novel cement buildings, and cement roads in the college after entering the college. At this moment, they were being dragged by the interpreters of the Honglu Temple. Miracle! Miracle! When will such a miracle come to our Zhenla kingdom? Although the emissaries of Zhenla were being dragged, their eyes were staring unblinkingly at the Guanghua building of Yanhuang College, and they were still muttering to themselves in a low voice. This must be the Holy Land of Bliss. But why did Buddha place the Holy Land of Bliss in the Tang Empire? Did our Jianri dynasty do something wrong? Ever since Alona Shun ascended Cloud Mountain, he had been in a state of absent-mindedness. Born in the Jianri dynasty, where the whole country believed in Buddhist precepts, he had been a loyal Buddhist since he was a child. Now, these miraculous cement buildings of Yanhuang College reminded him of some descriptions of the Holy Land of Bliss in the Buddhist scriptures. Although it was not exactly the same, there were still many similarities. This made him feel a little uncomfortable. Chapter 871. Cough cough. This old subject greets your Majesty. Cheng Yaojin, who originally wanted to slip away, was pestered by Li Gang. As a result, he missed the best opportunity to slip away. When Li Er arrived, he just happened to see him. Cheng Yaojin coughed for a while and bowed. At the same time, this old fellow had already thought of an excuse. As long as Li Er asked him why he was here, he would say that he was looking for Li Zishuan to treat his illness. This could be considered a self-justifying explanation. But who knew that Li Er didn't ask any questions? He only looked at him expressionlessly and walked past him to the rostrum. "Duke Lu, how dare you? You are deceiving the Emperor." Li Er couldn't be bothered to argue with Cheng Yaojin, but that didn't mean that others didn't want to argue with him. As a matter of fact, when Wei Er walked past Cheng Yaojin, he scolded him in a low voice. Cheng Yaojin rolled his eyes, but he wasn't afraid. Deceiving the Emperor? I, old Cheng, am sick. How is that deceiving the Emperor? You, Wei Xuanqing, can slander others as you wish, but don't slander me, old Cheng. You, Duke Lu, don't go too far. When has this old man slandered others? Meeting Cheng Yaojin, who wasn't afraid of anything and whose words could anger people to death, Wei Zheng could be considered to have 8 lifetimes of bad luck. Cheng Yaojin's few words made him tremble in anger. These two people, one was a fighting spirit, and the other was an old bastard. Of course, there would be no end to their quarrel. Fortunately, they were standing at the back and their voices were relatively low. Li Er, who was in front, didn't notice them. Otherwise, these two people would have a hard time eating. Not bad. I haven't seen them for a month, but these students look even more energetic. On the rostrum, Li Zishuan's original excellent seat in the center was, of course, occupied by the bandit Li Er. Looking at the more than 600 students standing upright below, Li Er nodded and praised. Not to mention other things, just this spirit, qi, and spirit were comparable to the soldiers of many places. They are just strong on the outside but weak on the inside. They are just looks. Students were still students after all. Could training them for a month turn them into elite soldiers? This old man has already asked around. The students here usually just stand in line and run around. Today, I will let the civil and military officials and ambassadors see how ridiculous it is for you, Li Zishuan, to be so serious about military training. Cui Shanfu stood at the back and looked at Li Zishuan gloomily. He sneered in his heart. What he didn't know was that with Li Zishuan's current cultivation, his perception of his surroundings had long surpassed that of an ordinary person. Although he had only taken a glance, Li Zishuan seemed to have sensed something. Although there was no killing intent in Cui Shanfu's eyes, there was a strong resentment. Today, Old Li suddenly brought all the civil and military officials and envoys to the academy. Something was wrong. Li Zixuan's expression did not change, but he secretly thought to himself, "Your Majesty is too kind. As the Emperor's students, of course they should act like the Emperor's students. Otherwise, what right do they have to continue staying in Yanhuang College?" Li Zixuan went along with Li Er's words and flattered him. "Ha! All right. Let the students continue." Li Er laughed in exasperation. Li Zixuan naturally did not have any objections. However, the officials all opened their eyes wide, waiting to see what kind of surprise Li Zixuan would give them. Class 1 students, continue the performance. Class 2 students, get ready. Li Zixuan walked to the side of the rostrum and said loudly, "Beat." Pang Feiji received the order and blew a long bamboo whistle. Then, he shouted in an even louder voice than before, "Class 1 students, listen to my command. Start running." As soon as he finished, there was a whoosh, and all 41 students raised their arms in unison. Bang! 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 Then, the students' orderly footsteps could be heard. The footsteps of more than 40 people sounded as if they were made by a single person. There was not a trace of noise, and there was not a trace of sloppiness. Looking at the team again, everyone's clothes, footsteps, and movements were all the same. Even the rise and fall of their bodies were in sync. On the rostrum, Li Er, the civil and military officials, the envoys, and even the teachers from Yanhuang College were all shocked. The Tang Empire was founded on martial arts. It could be said that most of the people here had seen the Tang Empire's elite army. It was undeniable that this group of students could not be compared to the Tang Empire's official army. However, they had only received a month of training, and they could already do this. It was truly shocking. And to be honest, there were not many soldiers in the entire Tang Empire who could run in such unison. What had happened in the past month? What kind of place was Yanhuang College? This was the question that many of the officials were thinking about. 1 2 1 2 3 4. While everyone was still in a daze, Pang Feiji began to shout the slogan. He knew that if he did not use the slogan to coordinate the students' footsteps, the students' footsteps would definitely become chaotic. 1 2 3 4. After a month of military training, the students had already formed a conditioned reflex. Every time they heard the instructor shout the slogan, they would always subconsciously shout along. More than 40 people shouted as if there were more than 100 people. The sound waves surged and reached the clouds. The people on the rostrum stared unblinkingly at the Class 1 students on the track. In the time it took to drink a cup of tea, the students had already finished one lap. During the entire process, no one fell behind and no one took a wrong step. The slogan and footsteps were the same from beginning to end. Everyone thought that the performance had ended. Who knew that after Pang Feiji had reorganized the team, he shouted again, "Class 1 students, listen to my command. Line. Formation." Swoosh. With a sound, the students all took small steps and scattered. Within a few breaths, the 41 students had already lined up in a neat but imperfect formation. 6 by 6, 36 by 7, 49 by 7. They were only 41 people, so it was impossible to form a perfect formation. Each of them stood upright on the field, like pine trees, motionless. They ordered their movements to be still, to stand like a pine tree, to sit like a bell, and to move like the wind. Although these students weren't soldiers, their actions were no different from those of the regular army. Are these people students or the Tang Empire's army? Aluona Shun stared and asked the translator beside him. The translator looked at Cui Shanfu awkwardly. After seeing the latter nod with a dark face, he replied, "Great Minister, these are indeed the students of Yanhuang College. They are not the regular army of the Tang Empire." "Are they really students?" Aluona Shun was in a daze for a moment. After a while, he muttered to himself, no wonder the Tang Empire is so powerful. Even the students of the college are so brave and disciplined. They are really the best country in the world. Chapter 872. It wasn't that the students of Yanhuang College had high aptitude or powerful abilities, but that they had undergone extremely harsh training in the past month. Li Zixuan, Qin Qiong, and Cheng Yaojin had given them a huge amount of pressure, prompting them to constantly transform. Some people didn't want to suffer and didn't want to undergo training. Fine, then they could go to the little dark room and stay there. In any case, the people who had been to the little dark room were all lifeless after coming out, as if their souls had been sucked out. After they recovered, even if they were beaten to death, they wouldn't be willing to enter the little dark room again. Every time they passed by the little dark room, they had to take a detour, afraid that they wouldn't be able to avoid it. Moreover, whenever someone mentioned the little dark room, their expressions would change. As long as they didn't enter the little dark room, even if it was tiring military training, they would still be happy. The students who had suffered before had a deep understanding of this. Everyone was forced to do so. Everyone had huge hidden potential. They were born in sorrow and died in peace and happiness. If they were forced into a corner, they could go to Liangshan. Heroes were created by the times. Many things that they thought were impossible were nothing more than that when they looked back. Under appropriate pressure, people would discover that there was a small universe hidden in their bodies. It was just that they hadn't developed it before. It was precisely because of this pressure that the students were able to complete their transformation within a month. Now they were lying down like a bough, standing like a pine tree, unmoving like a bell, and walking like a gust of wind. Although they looked bright on the surface, countless sweat, blood, and tears had condensed behind them. No one could succeed so easily. The envoys of the Nanyang countries were dumbfounded. The courtiers of the great Tang, especially the generals, were not calm either. When it came to military training, they were the ones who had the most right to speak. It was simply a miracle that Li Zixuan was able to train a group of powerless students into such a well-disciplined team in just a short month. They came late and didn't see the simple actions of standing at attention, taking a break, walking in unison, running, and other actions that the students had done earlier. However, even if they saw it, they wouldn't care much. However, the last item, the change in military formation, had a different meaning. Many generals realized that the speed at which the students changed their formation was about the same as the soldiers in the military camp. How could this be? One had to know that they were real soldiers, and these people in front of them were just a bunch of kids. Many of them were the second generation of rich playboys in Chang'an City. Since when could the soldiers in the barracks not even compare to those rich second generations? Yuqi Jingda, Niu Jinda, Li Jing, Duan Jishuan, Chu Tudong, Ho Junji, and the other military bigwigs began to think about how they should properly train their soldiers. Otherwise, if Li Er went to the barracks to inspect the soldiers and found that their training wasn't much better than Yanhuang College's, wouldn't they be finished? Pang Feiji led the students of Class 1 into the Swan Formation and Long Snake Formation. Then, he blew the whistle and instructed the students to return to their teams. The students of Class 2 were led by their instructors to the track and continue with their performance. Just like this, class after class took place. Li Zixuan had originally thought that Li Er would return to the palace after watching the performances of 2 or 3 classes. After all, the emperor had so many things to do every day. How could he possibly stay here for an entire morning? But unexpectedly, Old Li did not leave until the last class went on stage to perform. He was still sitting there with a relaxed look on his face as he watched the performance of the students with great interest. If he didn't leave, how could the other officials dare to leave? They could only obediently accompany him on the side. The foreign envoys were already numb from the shock. They seemed to have seen just how powerful the great Tang's army was from the military training of Yanhuang College. Just think about it, if even the students were so well trained and disciplined, how could the great Tang's army be weak? The more he thought about it, the more terrifying it was. The foreign envoys all made up their minds. When they returned to their countries, they would definitely tell their respective monarchs everything that they had seen and heard today. The great Tang was too powerful. Just a group of scholars was more well-trained than the regular army of their countries. They couldn't afford to offend such a country. This military training performance was undoubtedly a success. The big shots on the rostrum were also very satisfied. But of course, there was also someone who wasn't satisfied. It was Cui Shanfu, who had always found Li Zixuan an eyesore. At this moment, this old man's face was as black as ink. He glared at Li Zixuan hatefully and thought unwillingly, how is this possible? Li Zixuan has never been in a military camp before. He doesn't know anything about military affairs. How could he train a group of weak scholars to such a level in such a short time? This doesn't make sense. Beep. Next up is the last event of today's performance, Taiji Fist. After learning for so long, it's time to test whether you've put in the effort. All students, listen to my command and move with me. Up. Taiji Yin, Yang, and Xuanji are clear and bright. Only when you fully comprehend the loosening and tightening skills will you succeed. While Cui Shanfu was still in a daze, Li Zixuan had already stepped down from the rostrum and personally took over the command. He also started to lead the students to practice Taiji Fist. Why didn't they practice on the rostrum? If they stood higher up, it would be more convenient for the students to see. Cough cough, did you think he didn't want to? There were too many people up there. He couldn't let go of his hands and feet at all. In fact, the students of the academy had only been learning Taiji Fist for a week. In terms of proficiency, it was definitely far from enough. In order to prevent people from dropping the ball midway and forgetting the movements, Li Zixuan decided to lead them to practice together at the last minute. This was not in his original plan. The main reason was that Li Er had brought all the civil and military officials and the envoys of the Nanyang countries today. The academy definitely couldn't lose face at this time. He chanted the rhyme and pushed his hands in a circle. His body was relaxed and relaxed. The students followed behind him and did the same. Although their movements were not as synchronized as when they were running earlier, they were still considered neat. More importantly, when they sensed Li Zixuan's Dao realm and entered the zone, their movements would become more and more orderly. When the military generals standing on the rostrum saw Li Zixuan and the 600 students start to practice Taiji Fist, they were all shocked. To the upper echelons, there were no secrets in Chang'an City. That day, when Qing Chumo used Taiji to break through the realm, they all received the news afterward. Now that they had the opportunity to see Li Zixuan practice Taiji Fist in person, how could they not seize the opportunity to observe and observe? Even Li Er couldn't help but narrow his eyes. After all, although he was an emperor, he was also a martial artist at the same time. Chapter 873. One person practicing Taiji Fist might not seem like much, but more than 600 people practicing Taiji Fist together was a shocking scene. When Li Zixuan held the circle, the students followed suit. When Li Zixuan lifted the knee, the students followed suit. When Li Zixuan pushed horizontally, the students followed suit. Taiji Fist gave birth to Yin and Yang gave birth to the 4 symbols, and the 4 symbols gave birth to the 8 trigrams. The 8 trigrams determined good or bad luck, and good or bad luck led to great undertakings. Taiji Fist contained the truth of Taoism, and at the same time, it also contained the Tao of heaven and earth. More than 600 people practicing Taiji Fist together made everyone on the field gradually enter the realm of Tao. This was a wonderful feeling that could not be described with words. It was a bit similar to the Sanskrit of Buddhism. If you had been to a pure Buddhist temple and immersed yourself in the Sanskrit, you would definitely feel a sense of comfort. Taoism did not have Buddhist scriptures, but Taoism had the Tao Te Ching and Taiji Fist, which contained the essence of the Tao Te Ching. Arms, knees, mind, and all. If you don't support yourself, support yourself, support yourself. Time passed slowly. As Li Zixuan recited the last line of the song, the performance of Taiji Fist finally came to an end. The students withdrew their legs and returned to their standing posture. Li Zixuan habitually wiped his forehead, but there was no sweat on it. With his current martial arts cultivation, he rarely sweated. Unless it was a life-and-death battle, he would definitely not use his full strength. Well, the military training performance is officially over. Of course, the military training that made you suffer for a month is also over. Congratulations, from today onwards, you are officially students of Yanhuang College. A brand new door of knowledge is open for you. After practicing Taiji Fist, Li Zixuan went up to the rostrum. The successful military training performance made this guy a little carried away. Before Li Er went up to speak, he directly shouted to the students below. Clap, 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 clap. The students unconsciously clapped because they finally heard the news from Li Zixuan that the military training was coming to an end. This feeling was even better than drinking a cup of iced tea. Nowadays, clapping had become a tradition of the academy. Whenever they encountered something that made them want to slap the table and cheer, they would just clap and be done with it. I hope that in your future studies, you will remember your unwillingness to endure hardships and perseverance during military training. The future of Yanhuang College needs you to forge, and the future of the Great Tang needs you to personally participate. Do you still remember what I told you at the start of school? As a disciple of Yanhuang, he had to establish his heart for the heavens and earth, and establish his life for the people. I hope you will always remember this. Do you understand? Understood. Over 600 students roared in unison. Alright, I know you're all tired. Starting from this afternoon, you'll have 3 days off. Go home and have a good rest. 3 days later, come here and prepare to accept new knowledge and a new world. When the students heard this, they were so excited that they wanted to cheer loudly. However, Li Zixuan changed his tone and said, Ahem, don't be in such a hurry to leave. Next, let's welcome the Dean of Yanhuang College, the current emperor, to give you a few words of advice. Everyone, let's welcome him. Smack, smack, smack. After saying that, this guy was the first to applaud. The students below the stage were stunned, but they were only stunned for a moment before they followed suit and applauded. It turned out that it was Li Zixuan, who was talking enthusiastically just now. As he was talking, he wanted to dismiss the students directly. Suddenly, he felt an inexplicable murderous aura. Glancing sideways, he realized that it was Li Er who was staring at him with ill intentions. After being in the Great Tang for so long, Li Zixuan still had a bit of EQ. This guy instantly understood that he had spoken before the old leader. If this was in his previous life, it would be a big taboo. One day, the leader would make things difficult for you. Fortunately, his relationship with Old Li had always been good. Moreover, Old Li wasn't a petty person, so he didn't have to worry too much. Seeing that Li Zixuan was tactful, Li Er finally retracted his slightly threatening gaze. Then, he slowly stood up and walked to the front of the rostrum. Looking at the 600 students below the stage, he said in a deep voice, "In the past, Yu Yamacho said that the youth's wisdom is the wisdom of the country, the youth's wealth is the wealth of the country, and the youth's strength is the strength of the country." At that time, although we also felt that the young people were able to handle the country's affairs with ease, we felt that they lacked experience and were afraid of hardship. We felt that they couldn't bear the burden of the Great Tang's national fate. However, after watching your military training performance today, we feel that you might really be able to. Do you have confidence in yourselves? At the last sentence, Li Er's voice suddenly became loud and clear. Yes. The imperial power of the emperor was the most sacred thing in the world. People had an unforgettable reverence and worship for the emperor. Many of these students had never seen Li Er's appearance in their lives. Now, not only did they see him, but Li Er was also speaking to them. Not only did he speak, but his words also revealed that he valued them immensely. A soldier could die for his bosom friend. This was a true example of a ruler treating one as a nation's soldier, so one could only repay the ruler as a nation's soldier. The moment Li Er finished speaking, the 600-some students immediately roared in unison. Their roars shook the heavens as if they wanted to break through the clouds. At this moment, the atmosphere of the military training performance finally reached its highest climax. We also know that all of you are thinking about the holidays and must be anxious to return home. We won't say much. We only hope that all of you can become pillars that can bear the burden of the great Tang's national fate. Alright, all of you are dismissed. Li Er wasn't like those leaders that Li Zishuan had seen, who liked to speak at length at every conference. He only said a few words before very cooperatively announcing the dismissal of the performance. Seeing how open-minded Li Er was, the students inwardly sighed in admiration. The current emperor was truly a wise divine lord that was hard to come by in several hundred years. This made them even more determined to become pillars of the country. My beloved subjects, what do you think? As the students scattered, Li Er turned to the officials and asked with a smile, "What do you think?" The officials looked at each other, not understanding the meaning of Li Er's question. Seeing that no one answered, Li Er looked at the Nanyang envoy group again. To be precise, he looked at the great minister of the Jianri dynasty, Alam Nazhun, and asked, "What do you think of the great Tang's academy?" Until now, the shock on Alam Nashuan's face had not completely dissipated. He collected his thoughts and took a step forward to answer, "The great Tang Academy is full of talents. The students of the academy are disciplined and full of vitality. I, Alam Nazhun, am extremely impressed. The servant of Zhenla country, Yetu, is also deeply impressed. Bai Weiyu of Piao country is impressed. Even if Piao country built an academy with the strength of the entire country, I'm afraid it would still be difficult to compare." For a moment, the praises and sighs were endless. Old Li was overjoyed in his heart. Chapter 874. Prepare the carriage. Return to the palace. Li Er was extremely satisfied with the reactions of the envoys. Weren't there people who questioned Yen Wang College's ability to run a school and questioned Yen Wang College's military training system? Today's joint performance gave those who questioned it a resounding slap in the face. It made him extremely happy. "Your subjects respectfully send off your majesty." Li Zishuan, Li Gang, and the others bowed and saluted. They were all secretly relieved to varying degrees. They had finally sent this lord away. Li Er waved his hand and led the civil and military officials down from the rostrum and then left the academy. Cui Shanfu hung at the back of the line, his old face very ugly. This time, he urged the envoys of the Nanyang countries to visit Yanhuang College. Not only did he not discredit Li Zishuan, but he also helped Li Zishuan become more popular. It was like trying to steal a chicken only to end up losing the rice used to lure it. 10 days from now, I will inspect the 16 guards. I hope that the soldiers in the barracks will not slack off. Those who slack off in training will be dealt with according to military law. On the way back, Li Er casually instructed the generals on his left and right. The generals behind him were all shocked, thinking to themselves that the most worrying thing had happened. When they were watching the military training of the students of Yanhuang Academy, they were worried that Li Er would suddenly have the urge to go to the barracks for a review after watching it. Now it seemed that their worries had come true. It wasn't that their troops couldn't withstand Li Er's inspection, but a formal military inspection would definitely be completely different from the military training joint performance of Yanhuang College. Generally speaking, the military's daily drill was definitely not as good as Li Zishuan's military training joint performance. It emphasized more on actual combat. The generals were worried that Li Er would have preconceived notions after watching this military training exercise. When he went to the barracks to watch the soldiers practice, he would have a psychological gap. Then, wouldn't they inexplicably become the scapegoat? Your subjects obey your orders. The generals felt bitter in their hearts and cupped their hands in acknowledgement. At the same time, they secretly decided that from today onwards, they would fiercely train the soldiers under them. Since they could not compare to the spectacle, they would let Li Er see their hard work. As for imitating Yanhuang College's military training model, it was better to forget about it. Not a single general thought about this. Firstly, they were not willing. Secondly, they did not dare. It should be known that Li Er was about to become the emperor. Who would dare to fool him with superficial projects in the military? Wasn't this courting death? Just after noon, the students of Yanhuang College were on holiday. The original 3-day holiday became 3.5 days, which made many students happy. The local students of Chang'an went straight home. As for the students from other places, the 3.5 days of vacation was enough for them to go out and have fun together. After all, he had suffered for a month. It was time for him to go out and relax. However, some people were unwilling to leave, such as Ching Chumo and Li Tai, who were the second generation of playboys in Chang'an. For them, even if they went home, they would be bored to death. It was better to stay at the academy. Big brother, can you go to the Yamacho and ask for a football for us? At this moment, this group of people was sneakily discussing something downstairs. Li Tai patted Li Qingqian's arm and urged him. Hey, that's right. This group of playboys did not want to go home because they wanted to play football together at the academy. It couldn't be helped. The new game of football was too attractive. They had only played one game that day, but they were already obsessed with football. When they went home, there was no football, no place to play football, and no friends to play football with. So why would they go back? Wasn't it just looking for trouble for themselves? Why me? Qingke, can't you go by yourself? Li Qingqian took 2 steps back and said with a speechless face. Li Tai laughed and said, Big brother, we are all students of the academy. This student is naturally afraid of the teacher, let alone the Yamacho. But you are not the same. You are not a student now. You are the crown prince of the Tang Empire, so you know. I know? What the F***ck do I know? Li Qingqian almost spat out blood when he heard this, but in the blink of an eye, he saw Li Huairan, Sun Zifan, Chu Yanfu, Qin Huaiyu, and the others were all looking at him with burning gazes, so he could only brace himself and say, all right, I'll go. Then, he ran upstairs. In the end, he also wanted to play football himself. Otherwise, how could he be so easily fooled by Li Tai? Football? It's in the corner. Gao Ming, take it yourself. Li Zishuan, who was writing a lesson plan in the office, pointed behind the door and said after hearing Li Qingqian's intention. Then, he continued to write at his desk. Speaking of which, no one dared to command the crown prince to take things. Oh. Li Qingqian saw that Li Zishuan was very busy and did not say much. He picked up the football and was about to go out. When he was at the door, his footsteps suddenly stopped. He turned his head and said, Xiaoxian, didn't you say earlier that you wanted to introduce a batch of football to the academy? Why haven't you? Oh, the workshop is not done yet. I'll have them send it over when they are done. Li Zishuan patted his head and replied. The truth was that this guy only mentioned it that day and forgot about it after saying it. He did not even mention it to the workshop. I see. Li Qingqian nodded. He hesitated for a moment and said, Xiaoxian, Changle has loved to play football since she was young, but the rubber balls in Shi City are not as light as your football. Can you see if you can get one from your batch of football? This guy wanted to trick Li Zixuan's football. Now that the academy's military training was over, he had to return to the palace. Although he could come out in the future, it was still inconvenient. Therefore, he had a bright idea and came up with this idea. Li Zixuan stopped what he was doing and raised his head. Okay. Since Chang'e wants it, then give her one from the academy's football. I'll have someone send it to you when it's done. Li Chengqian was delighted. Just as he was about to thank him, his expression suddenly became strange. Xiaoxian, are you interested in my sister? After pondering for a long time, Li Chengqian finally asked the question in his heart. Li Zixuan's old face darkened and he almost vomited blood. He pointed at Li Chengqian and was so angry that he could not speak. Li Chengqian was not to be outdone and continued, Xiaoxian, if you are not interested in Chang'e, then why do you immediately give her whatever she wants? Qingke has been asking you for this football for a long time and you still haven't given it to her. Hearing this reason, Li Zixuan was both angry and amused. He straightened his face and pointed at Li Chengqian. Brilliant. I'll pretend that I didn't hear what you said today. If you and Qingke are willing to compete with a 7- or 8-year-old girl, then I can only say that you two have lived like dogs for all these years. As for Chang'e, not only do I give her what she wants, but I also give Lan what she wants. Is there anything strange about that? Chapter 875. Ahem. I'm just asking casually. Xiaoxian, don't get agitated. It's good that you didn't. In the principal's office, Li Chengqian saw Li Zixuan bristling with anger and hurriedly waved his hand in embarrassment. In fact, the reason why he asked this question was mainly because the sudden marriage proposal from the Grand Minister of the Jianri Dynasty, Aluo Nazhun, gave him a wake-up call. At that time, he realized that someone had set their eyes on Chang'e. Since then, his nerves had become sensitive. Now that he saw Li Zixuan like this, how could Li Chengqian not know that he was overthinking? Thus, he hurriedly apologized. In fact, he didn't have any prejudice against Li Zixuan. It was just that he thought that Chang'e was still young. Moreover, Li Zixuan already had a family. As the apple of his father's eye, how could Chang'e marry Li Zixuan? And most importantly, his sister and Li Zixuan both had the surname Li. They wouldn't marry if they had the same surname. Not marrying if they had the same surname was a traditional marriage taboo in China. It meant that men and women with the same surname were not allowed to marry. The ethics and laws of the Pre-Qin and the two Han dynasties were against marrying if they had the same surname. Not marrying if they had the same surname started in the early days of the Western Zhou dynasty in China. It was a rule left behind by the Zhou people when they practiced marriage outside the clan. In the spring and autumn period, people had a better understanding that marrying if they had the same surname would cause deformity and infertility in the offspring. However, marrying if they had the same surname still happened occasionally among the aristocrats. After the Warring States period, surnames were used. After the Han dynasty, surnames were not distinguished. Thus, marrying if they had the same surname was not prohibited. In the Tang dynasty, marrying if they had the same surname followed the ancient system. The Tang law stipulated that if they married if they had the same surname, they would be apprentices for 2 years. If they had the same surname and were of the same clan, they would be punished for adultery. The Ming and Qing law stipulated that if they married if they had the same surname, they would be beaten 60 times and divorced. However, surnames in ancient times were different from those in later times. In ancient times, people with the same surname must be of the same clan. In later times, people with the same surname might not necessarily be related by blood. Therefore, this rule was deleted in the Qing criminal law at the end of the Qing dynasty. In the Zhou system, marrying if they had the same surname, it might not be the same in the Han dynasty. There were also cases of marrying if people with the same surname. For example, the Tang recorded that Empress Lu married Lu Yun. Therefore, after confirming that Li Zixuan really didn't have any thoughts about Chang'e and only treated her as his younger sister, Li Chengqian heaved a sigh of relief. If Li Zixuan was interested in Chang'e, things would be too troublesome. Li Chengqian didn't want his younger sister to suffer. You've already taken the football. If there's nothing else, hurry up and leave, Li Zixuan said in an indifferent tone. He was a little angry, but he did not know why he was angry. Was it anger from being misunderstood? Or was it because the truth had been exposed? As the crown prince of a country, he was actually expelled as an unwelcome guest. However, Li Chengqian was not angry. There was only awkwardness and relief on his face. He laughed dryly and left with the football in his arms. Yamacho, Zhenla Piao, and Fu Nan envoys request an audience. About an hour after Li Chengqian left, the office door was opened again. Mo Zhong walked in and bowed. They came to see me? Did he say what happened? Li Zixuan put down the pencil in his hand and asked doubtfully. Mo Zhong shook his head and said, Yamacho, they didn't say. Do you want to see them or not? Li Zixuan frowned and thought for a moment. He nodded and said, Let them in. Yes. After a while, 3 middle-aged brown-skinned men in silk came in with 3 servants. Speaking of which, after these envoys arrived in Chang'an, they were naturally like Granny Lu entering the Grand View Garden. They felt that everything they saw was good, so they began to crazily buy mode. They naturally bought a lot of silk, satin, and exquisite porcelain, so these envoys were now all wearing silk clothes. Greetings, Marquis. After the 3 of them came in, they all bowed to Li Zixuan politely, and then said in very stiff Chinese. Previously, they had all seen Li Zixuan during the military training, so there was no need for introduction. They knew that the young man in the room was Li Zixuan. Li Zixuan smiled and stretched out his hand. You don't have to be so courteous. Please sit. As the saying goes, don't slap a smiling face. These envoys were very respectful, and they even learned a sentence in Chinese in order to see him. This made Li Zixuan feel very comfortable in his heart. What was a celestial kingdom? Not only were you strong, but you also had to let the whole world learn your language. That was a celestial kingdom. Li Zixuan felt that in the future, his descendants should be able to escape the fate of learning English. He believed that with the combined efforts of himself and Yanhuang College's teachers and students, they could make Chinese the world's language. Of course, the envoys couldn't understand Li Zixuan's words. The 3 interpreters immediately helped to translate. The 3 envoys thanked them and carefully sat on the sofa next to them. They were all shocked when they sat down. What kind of chair was this? Why was it so soft? The envoys had thought that they were very knowledgeable after walking around Chang'an city in the past few days. However, after coming to Yanhuang College, which was full of high-rise buildings and glass walls, they found that their little knowledge was not enough. Everything here was so novel and luxurious, just like the heavenly palace of the divine kingdom. With these surprises, they were even more in awe of Li Zixuan, the founder of Yanhuang College. This young man was really mysterious and powerful. No wonder he was valued by the Tang Emperor and was conferred the title of Marquis at such a young age. Thank you, Marquis. We came here this time to bring some specialties for Marquis. I hope you will kindly accept them, Marquis. Pu Yatu, the envoy of Zhenla, handed over a brocade box and said with a smile, Marquis, this is a little gift from our monarch. Please accept it. The other 2 envoys followed suit. They each took out a very beautiful box and handed it over. Even without a translator, Li Zixuan understood what they meant. He leaned back in his chair and narrowed his eyes. He did not take the gift box. If you have something to say, please say it directly. I don't like to beat around the bush. One who was unaccountably solicitous was hiding evil intentions. After taking someone else's money, he had to do things for them. Although Li Zishuan never thought of himself as an honest and upright official, he didn't want to accept people's gifts for no reason. Besides, he didn't lack money. Ahem. Marquis is indeed a selfless, honest and upright person. We admire you. Seeing that Li Zishuan did not accept the gift, their hearts sank. Pu Yata coughed twice and said embarrassedly. Li Zishuan waved his hand and said, "It doesn't matter whether I am honest or not. Let's talk about the matter." The three of them looked at each other. In the end, Pu Yatu stood up and said, "Marquis, His Majesty appointed you as the Commissioner of the Department of Shipping. In the future, our countries will inevitably have to deal with Marquis often. We came here in advance to get familiar with you." Chapter 876. So that's how it is. In the principal's office, Li Zishuan heard Pu Yata's words and realized that he had another job, the right supervisor of the Bureau of Imports. In the future, he would be the second in command of the Great Tang's General Administration of Customs. This Marquis has received your goodwill. Since His Majesty has decided to open up sea trade, as long as you don't violate the laws of the Great Tang, this Marquis and King Hejian will not make things difficult for you. Li Zishuan indifferently said. Yes. Marquis, be at ease. We definitely won't violate the laws of the Great Tang. But, Marquis, are there any divine immortal mirrors and colored glass cups in your curious pavilion that you can't touch? Would it be possible for you to sell them to us through sea trade? Pu Yatu humbly smiled. Speaking of the fairy mirror, colored glass cup, and other products from the strange pavilion, Pu Yatu and the others were shocked after seeing them 2 days ago. They used up all their remaining wealth to buy the products from the strange pavilion, but they still felt that it was far from enough. Once they brought the fairy mirror and colored glass cup back to their country, they could make 10 or dozens of times the profit by selling them. But then again, no matter how much wealth they had, they couldn't buy so many divine immortal mirrors, colored glass cups, and don't touch me in such a short amount of time. Most of these items were rare and sometimes difficult to buy even if one had the money. Thus, after some discussion, they decided to personally visit Li Zishuan. First, they wanted to pay respects to Li Zishuan, and second, they wanted to discuss business with him. Divine immortal mirrors and colored glass cups can't be touched. So it turns out that emissaries are interested in these items. But I'm afraid that I will have to disappoint you. These items are still in short supply within the Great Tang, and this Marquis has yet to consider selling them to other countries. Li Zishuan finally understood why these 3 emissaries had come to find him today, but he truly had no plans to expand the Curious Pavilion's overseas business. Marquis, don't be in such a hurry to refuse. The products of the Curious Pavilion are of excellent quality, and our king will probably be very fond of them. When the time comes, the price won't be a problem. If you sell them to us, you'll definitely make more money than in the Great Tang. Please reconsider. A trace of anxiety flashed across Pu Yatu's face as he said hurriedly. Li Zishuan thought for a moment, then shook his head and said, I'm currently busy with official business. I don't want to be distracted by business. Let's talk about this later. This was an order for him to leave. Pu Yatu had stayed in Chang, and for a long time, and had some understanding of the culture of the Tangs. But he was not willing to return empty-handed. After thinking for a while, he suddenly had an idea and raised his head. We know that Marquis is rich and doesn't care about money. However, there are some things that Marquis cares about. For example, food and rubber. This one has heard that Marquis has asked someone to transport a large amount of rubber from an island in the south for the Tang imperial quartz trade. It just so happens that the Zhenla Kingdom also has a large rubber forest. As long as Marquis agrees to provide the Zhenla Kingdom with some celestial immortal mirrors, colored glass cups, and don't touch me, our monarch will definitely be willing to exchange food and rubber belts with you. Of course, if you are not satisfied, we can also add some jade and the best quality ivory. Li Zishuan raised his eyebrows and his eyes lit up. He stared at Pu Yatu and asked, "Are you serious? Does the Zhenla kingdom really have rubber forests?" It must be known that if one wanted to build a modern industrial system, they absolutely could not do without rubber. Although synthetic rubber could also be used in addition to natural rubber, the synthetic rubber process was too complicated and difficult to complete with the current industrial base. As for natural rubber, Li Zishuan had not found a wild rubber forest in the Tang Empire or a place suitable for rubber production. After the founding of China, in order to break the foreign blockade, large natural rubber plantations were built in Yunnan, Hainan, and other places. This showed that the climate there was suitable for the growth of rubber trees. Li Zishuan could follow suit and plant a batch of rubber seeds in the south of the Tang Empire to establish natural rubber plantations, but the problem was that he had no connections there. The heavens were high and the emperor was far away. Who would pay attention to a marquis account over there? Now that he heard that there were rubber trees in the Zhenla kingdom, this was really unexpected good news. This one would never dare to deceive Marquis. When Marquis sent people to pick rubber on the island, I saw it with my own eyes, and I'm very sure that there are a lot of those trees in the Zhenla kingdom. Seeing that Li Zishuan was interested in rubber, Pu Yatu hurriedly replied excitedly. This thing was worthless to him, but he could use it as a bargaining chip. It was simply a great deal. Marquis, the Piao kingdom also has rubber trees, and it can also be used as an exchange. Please consider the Piao kingdom, Marquis. Marquis, although the Funan kingdom does not have rubber trees, it has a lot of food and jade. If Marquis really needs rubber, our monarch can also send people to plant a lot of it. The Funan kingdom and the Zhenla kingdom are neighbors, and we can definitely plant the trees they have. Seeing that the Zhenla kingdom was going to get ahead of them, the envoys of the Piao kingdom and the Funan kingdom hurriedly said. After Li Zishuan understood their words, a smile finally appeared on his face. He pondered for a moment and said, "Since you are so sincere, it would be unkind of me if I don't give in. How about this? I will order the Strange Taste Pavilion to expand production as soon as possible, and then I will send a batch of goods to trade with you. If your monarch is really as you say and is willing to accept this deal, then we can cooperate for a long time in the future." In the end, the immortal mirror, the colored glass cup, and the untouchable were all luxury goods. Even if they were sold abroad, it would not harm the interests of the great Tang. If these envoys asked Li Zishuan for compasses, plows, and new teaching materials that were related to people's livelihood and technology, Li Zishuan would not agree to sell them, no matter how much they offered. "Thank you, Marquis. Marquis, rest assured. This one has absolute confidence in convincing our monarch to agree to this deal." Pu Yatu was overjoyed and hurriedly bowed to express his thanks. The other two envoys also repeatedly promised Li Zishuan. "You are too polite." Li Zishuan picked up his teacup, took a sip of water, and smiled faintly. As the saying goes, serve tea and send off guests. This Pu Yatu could still understand. He exchanged glances with the other two and was about to get up and leave. Suddenly, she seemed to have thought of something. She looked at Li Zishuan and said, "Marquis is so straightforward, then this one will give Marquis a piece of news. May our friendship last for a long time." Chapter 877. What news? Li Zishuan originally thought that this matter was already over, but he did not expect that Pu Yatu seemed to have something else to say. Today was really full of twists and turns. Pu Yatu carefully glanced at the direction of the door. Li Zishuan waved his hand and said, "Messenger, if you have something to say, just say it. No one will eavesdrop outside the door." With his current skills, if someone was eavesdropping nearby, it would definitely be impossible to hide from his perception. But Pu Yatu's attitude showed that what he was going to say next was definitely not ordinary. Pu Yatta then opened his mouth and said, I don't know if Marquis is wondering why we, the messengers, suddenly came to the academy to watch the military training exercise today? Li Zishuan narrowed his eyes, crossed his arms, leaned back on the chair and said, Messenger, if you have something to say, please say it directly. The other two messengers, at this moment, changed their expressions greatly. Pu Yatta gritted his teeth and said, The first one who proposed to come to the academy was the great minister of Jianri Dynasty, Aluo Nazhun. Although I don't understand the reason, but 2 days ago, Minister Chui often talked to Aluo Nazhun alone, so, at this point, Pu Yatta stopped talking, because everyone should be able to guess what he was going to say next. Li Zishuan's face darkened, and a cold light flashed in his eyes. The Chui family, they were really like maggots attached to bones. Previously, they sent people to assassinate him but did not succeed. Instead, their old nest was destroyed by him. He did not expect that these people would not stop, and now they were secretly playing tricks. It was really disgusting. I know. I will pretend that I did not hear what you said just now. The two of you are not allowed to spread it out. Li Zishuan turned his head to look at the two messengers from Piao country and Funan country, and said in a deep voice. He wanted to settle the score with the Chui family by himself, and did not want to complicate matters. Yes, we understand. We will definitely not spread it out. The two messengers quickly agreed. Young master, why haven't we sold the rent we received this year? At noon on this day, Li Zishuan had just returned from the academy when Xiao He, who was in the courtyard, ran over and asked. Li Zishuan's curiosity was piqued. He asked why? Has Xiao He also started to care about the important matters in the residence? The Li Zishuan had no intention of selling off the rent they had collected this year. Not only that, Li Zishuan had also bought a lot of food from other farmsteads. Everything was to prepare for the locusts next year. As the saying goes, as long as one has food to spare, one will not panic. Although he knew there would be a locust plague next year, he had never seen one before. God knows what the exact situation would be like when the time came. It was always better to be prepared. Of course, very few people knew about the locust plague. Xiao He definitely didn't know about it. Otherwise, she wouldn't have asked this question. Xiao He, who was not afraid of anything, was startled by Li Zishuan's casual words. She quickly waved her hand and said, No, young master, I didn't mean that. I just heard that the price of food in Chang has dropped greatly recently when I was helping young madam to buy things in the West Market today. And there is a tendency for it to continue to drop. Only then did I remember that we haven't sold our food yet. She was just a servant girl. How could she be qualified to care about the important matters in the residence? If it were a more narrow-minded mistress, she would definitely be driven out of the house after hearing this sentence. The price of food has dropped greatly? Li Zishuan didn't have as many strange thoughts as Xiao He. He frowned slightly and asked, What is the price of food in Chang and now? Why did the price of food suddenly drop? Xiao He breathed a sigh of relief and explained, Young master, now you can buy a bucket of rice for 2 coins. The reason why it is so cheap is that when the Imperial Court fleet returned a while ago, the civilian merchant ships also brought back a lot of food. Those merchants were eager to sell off the food, so they all lowered the price of food and wanted to sell it as soon as possible. Now all the major grain stores and granaries in Chang are basically full. Previously, Li Er had decided to let the Imperial Court organize a fleet to lead civilian merchant ships to trade in Southeast Asia. The main purpose was to exchange for a large amount of food to cope with the locust plague next year. The more than 500 official ships of the Imperial Court were all full of food when they returned. Li Er didn't have a hard and fast rule for civilian merchant ships, but each family must have at least 2 ships dedicated to carrying food. As a result, when the fleet docked, those civilian merchants were eager to sell the food on the ship. This thing was worthless and would only rot in their hands. 2 coins for a bucket of rice? Damn, a bucket of rice was more than 12 caddies. Li Zishuan suddenly felt that it was a waste of natural resources. Those grain merchants were really wasteful. How could they sell the food so cheaply? Well, okay, I know. Xiao He, you don't have to continue to worry about it. I naturally have my reasons for not selling the food. You can go do your own things. Li Zishuan sighed in his heart at the cheap price of food in the Tang Empire. At the same time, he was quickly analyzing the impact of the fall in food prices on the Tang Empire. In modern times, foreign food had always been cheaper than domestic food. Every year, large amounts of food flowed into China from abroad. As a result, domestic food prices were bound to fluctuate. As the saying went, cheap food hurt the farmers. Many farmers hoped that their food could be sold at a good price while having a good harvest. In order to protect the farmers' enthusiasm, the country could only buy the farmers' food. Most of the food bought by the country didn't enter the market. The farmers thought that their food met the requirements of the market after selling it, but in the end it was the country that kept it. Although this method would leave behind many hidden dangers and couldn't solve the problem fundamentally, it was still a good way to stabilize the food prices. But in the era he lived in, was it really necessary to stabilize the food prices? At this time, the food in the Tang Empire was mainly in the hands of landlords. After the farmers paid the rent, most of the food left in their hands was only enough for their families to survive. Very few of them would sell their food. If he persuaded Li Er to stabilize the food prices, the landlords would be the ones who would benefit. Although he was also a landlord now, in view of this, instead of stabilizing the food prices, he might as well use this opportunity to buy more food and save it for next year's locusts. After sending Xiao He away, Li Zishuan rode his horse back to Chang and to find butler Wang Zhong. Uncle Wang, help me contact the other members of the Flaming Yellow Chamber of Commerce in these 2 days. Tell them that I want to buy a large amount of food and ask for their help. At the same time, I will also get people to build a large granary at the foot of the Cloud Mountain. Li Zishuan found Wang Zhong in the front yard of the Li residence and went straight to the point. Chapter 878. Young Master, why are we buying so much food? When Wang Zhong heard that Li Zishuan wanted to buy food, and it seemed that he wanted to buy a lot of it, he was immediately puzzled. Li Zishuan waved his hand and said, Uncle Wang, you don't have to ask. You'll know the reason when the time comes. Wang Zhong was still worried and said, Young Master, if we buy so much food, won't the government find out and cause the emperor to punish us? It must be known that in ancient times, the government had always strictly prohibited ordinary people from hoarding food, which was a relatively important resource. Buying food without restraint like Li Zishuan did was still somewhat against the taboo. Uncle Wang, you don't have to worry. His Majesty won't blame us. Li Er probably couldn't wait for him to purchase more food for the disaster relief next year. Perhaps Old Li was doing the same thing as him now. Wang Zhong had nothing else to say. He nodded and went out to make the arrangement. Now that Li Zishuan had established the Flaming Yellow Chamber of Commerce, many things were much easier. This was the power of an alliance. Li Zishuan's guess was right. Li Er was also thinking about taking advantage of the fall in grain prices to buy a large amount of grain. Minister Xiao, do you know about the recent drop in the price of food in Chang'an? Li Er called Xiao Yu over and asked after the morning assembly in Ganlu Hall. Xiao Yu seemed to have realized something. He frowned and said, Your Majesty, I've heard about it. From what I see, the fluctuation in the price of food in Chang'an is mainly caused by the excess food brought back by the fleet going south. However, this is only a temporary effect. Once the excess food is digested by the merchants, the price of food in Chang'an will definitely return to normal. Li Er's smiled inexplicably. He stood up, clasped his hands behind his back, and said to Xiao Yu, Minister Xiao, you're right. But in order to stabilize the grain price as soon as possible, I'd like to transfer some money to purchase the extra grain in Chang'an. What do you think? Xiao Yu's eyebrows twitched. As expected, Li Er was thinking about the national treasury again. As the butler of the Tang Empire, he was in charge of the entire country's money bag. Normally, he would spend 1 copper coin like 2 copper coins. When he heard that Li Er wanted to transfer money, Xiao Yu felt his heart ache. How much money does your majesty intend to take away? Xiao Yu said helplessly. This sea trade has brought huge profits to the imperial court. Now there should be a lot of money left in the national treasury. I want to take out 50,000 strings of cash to buy food and stabilize the price of food. Minister Xiao, you must arrange this as soon as possible. Li Er calculated in his heart and ordered. The 50,000 strings of cash should not be underestimated. At the current price of 2 copper coins per bushel of rice, 50,000 strings of cash could buy more than 2 million dawn of grain. A month ago, the great Tang's treasury wouldn't have been able to transfer so much money. Yes, your majesty. Xiao Yu inwardly heaved a sigh of relief. A month ago, the national treasury was indeed unable to take out so much money. But now, 50,000 strings of cash was nothing. Where's Chengqian? In the afternoon, Li Er finished his work and let out a sigh of relief. He looked around and suddenly asked Zhao Song, Your Majesty, the Crown Prince should still be in the academy. Zhao Song bowed and replied, In the academy? What's he doing in the academy? A month ago, Li Chengqian had entered Yanhuang College in the name of a supervisor. He had gone through thick and thin with the students of the academy and had undergone military training together. But now that a month had passed, Li Chengqian should have returned to the palace to continue being the crown prince and do what he should do as the crown prince. However, it had been a few days since the end of the military training in Yanhuang College, and Li Er had barely seen Li Chengqian. After serving Li Er for so many years, Zhao Song had a rough idea of what Li Er was thinking. He hesitated for a moment and replied, The Crown Prince should be playing Kuju with His Highness King of Wei and His Highness King of Han at the academy. Kuju? Li Er was even more confused. In his eyes, Li Chengqian had always been diligent and eager to learn. How could he forget about work because of a moment of fun? He stood up and said, Come with me to take a look. These guys are not returning to the palace during the holidays. They're playing Kuju at the academy. This is outrageous. Zhao Song quickly said, Your Majesty, the Crown Prince and the others are playing Kuju. It's not the Kuju you saw before. It's a new type of ball made by the Marquis of Yong'an. It's very elastic. I heard that they call it a soccer ball. Soccer ball? Then all the more I want to take a look. Hearing that it was Li Zixuan's new toy, Li Er's interest was piqued. He was wearing casual clothes and did not need to deliberately change. He directly brought Zhao Song out of the palace. Go on. Cut off his ball. Wow, it's really broken. His Highness King of Han is too fast. What a good ball. His Highness King of Han may be young, but he's too ferocious when he plays. He's as good as 2 players. Oh no. Qing Chumo is catching up. I'm afraid His Highness King of Han won't be able to bring him out. Yanhuang College, on the sports field. Although it was the holidays, there were still many students gathered there. There was no other reason other than the fact that they could see Li Chengqian, Li Ku, and Qing Chumo playing soccer. Compared to the last time, the current sports field was undoubtedly more formal. There were already lines, bottom lines, center lines, and center circles on the grass. Moreover, there was no one in the entire college who did not know about soccer. The students were all looking forward to the batch of soccer balls that Li Zixuan had promised to come to the college as soon as possible. Before that, they could only watch Li Chengqian and the others play for fun. At the same time, when one of them got tired of playing, perhaps they could go up and play for a while? Bao Lin, catch the ball. In the middle of the field, Chumo patted his horse and charged forward. With a feint, he skillfully intercepted the football at Li Ku's feet. Then, without stopping, he sent a flying pass directly to Yuchi Baolin at the back. Speaking of which, this was the advantage of having long legs. In a soccer game that did not allow the use of internal energy, apart from personal fitness, the most important thing was the length of one's legs. This was a natural advantage. Yuchi Baolin's reflexes were not as agile as Chumo's. He had just received the ball when he was already surrounded. "Baolin, quick, pass it to me!" Iron Egg shouted anxiously from outside the crowd. He did go home during the holidays, but the Han village was only a few hundred steps away from Yanhuan College. He could come here whenever he wanted. The field was in full swing. The spectators outside the field were watching with great interest and cheering from time to time. No one noticed that at this moment, a handsome middle-aged man came to the sidelines with a skinny old man. Then, he stared intently at the group of young people playing soccer on the field. Chapter 879. Huff huff. Take a break, I'll take a break. Who will help me play for a while? After kicking for nearly an hour, Sun Zifen couldn't take it anymore. He panted and shouted loudly, "Let's go!" He used to be a fat otaku. In terms of stamina and physical fitness, he couldn't be compared to people like Li Ku and Chumo, who had martial arts. "Hey, I'll do it." Dijishuan didn't go home during the holidays. He was anxiously watching from the side. When he heard that Sun Zifen was going to find a substitute at the last minute, he was the first to react. He ran forward and volunteered himself. He had been drooling over football for a long time, but this thing couldn't be bought with money. He couldn't bring himself to borrow it from Li Zishuan. After all, his friendship with Li Zishuan hadn't reached that level, so he could only come here to be a spectator. He used to live in Bingzhou, where he was quite successful. However, he was not familiar with the top foppish circle in Chang'an. As a result, he could only pitifully look for opportunities to be a substitute outside the arena. If Di Xiaoshu knew that his son was so useless, he would probably punish Di Jishuan again. "Haha. Okay, brother, help me play for a while." Sun Zifen stood on his tiptoes and patted Di Jishuan on the shoulder with a smile. Then he said a few words to his teammates and turned to leave the field. They were just fooling around now. There was no team uniform to hand over, so it was easy to change players. Of course, in this situation, it was easy to not distinguish between friend and foe. It was common for the football to be passed to the opponent's feet. Damn it, Your Majesty! Sun Zifen had just turned to leave the field when he inadvertently saw Li Er and Zhao Song outside the field. He was so scared that he almost peed. But even if he didn't pee, he was so scared that he couldn't walk. "What are you talking about? Zifen, are you tired and muddle-headed?" Chumo happened to be closer. He patted Sun Zifen on the back and wondered. "Her Majesty is here." Sun Zifen took a deep breath and said. Chumo almost tripped. He looked in the direction where Sun Zifen was looking, and the expression on his face suddenly froze. After being stunned for a while, he hurriedly ran up with Sun Zifen and bowed to Li Er. "Your Majesty, I am Chumo, Sun Zifen." "Your Majesty?" The students around Li Er turned pale with fright. One by one, they hurriedly took a few steps back and bowed to Li Er. Student greets Your Majesty." It was not their fault that they were slow to react and did not recognize Li Er earlier. Although Li Er was present at the military training demonstration, how many students dared to look directly at the dragon face? Most people only saw Li Er's figure and did not completely see his face. Li Er was now wearing casual clothes. How could they recognize him in such a short time? Furthermore, the football match on the field was so exciting that they did not have time to pay attention to what the people around them looked like. "Your son greets father." With such a big movement here, It was impossible for the people playing football on the field not to notice. Li Chengxian, Li Tai, and Li Ku hurriedly trotted over and bowed to Li Er. No need for formalities. I am just going out of the palace in casual clothes. You can play by yourselves. There is no need to pay attention to me. Li Er played the friendly card and smiled gently at the students around him. Thank you, Your Majesty. One was willing to hit and the other was willing to be hit. The students enjoyed Li Er talking to them like this, and the expressions on their faces suddenly relaxed a lot. Is this the football that made you addicted to it and unwilling to go back to the palace during the holidays? After greeting the students, Li Er walked to the lawn and came to the front of the football. He turned his head and said with a smile that was not a smile, your son was just having fun for a while and missed the proper business. Please punish me, father." Li Chengxian immediately reacted and hurriedly apologized. Without waiting for Li Tai and Li Ku to agree, Li Er waved his hand and said, "All right, there will be no next time. Besides, I am not here to punish you today." He kicked the football at his feet and then said with a smile, "The football that Li Zishuan made is indeed extraordinary. The elasticity is dozens of times better than before. No wonder you guys are reluctant to go back to Chang'an." Li Chengxian and the other two stood on the spot and laughed dryly. Li Er said again, "After watching you play for so long, I am also a little itchy to play. I have seen the rules of football for so long and have some understanding. The weather is good today, I will play with you guys." "Your Majesty, you can't," Zhao Song was shocked and hurriedly stopped him. Li Er ignored him and took off the cloak on his back. He handed it to Zhao Song and said, "Why not? Don't tell me you think you can hurt me with just the few of them? This old servant dares not." Zhao Song was sweating profusely. "All right, all of you go on the field. I will replace Sun Zifen's position. Come, continue playing." A smile appeared on Li Er's face. He loved Kuju when he was young, but in order to fight for the world, he could not remember how many years it had been since he last played football. Li Zishuan's method of playing football made him somewhat unable to hold back and wanted to try it out himself. It was just that the tragic Di Zhishuan had fought so hard for a chance to be a substitute, but before he could touch the ball on the field, he was replaced again. The other party was the person with the highest power in the country. He could not be angry at all even if he was robbed. After the teams were regrouped, the two teams started a fierce competition again. As Li Er's sons, Li Chengxian, Li Tai, and Li Ku knew that Li Er did not like others to deliberately let him win. Therefore, when Li Er went on the field, not only did they not secretly let him win, but they also played even harder. At this moment, Li Er was dribbling the ball alone, trying to break through the opponent's defensive zone. Li Chengxian and his brothers were desperately running toward Li Er, trying to intercept the football at his feet. Bang! In the end, Li Er was still inexperienced and was intercepted by Li Ku when he was 5 feet away from the penalty area. With the help of a strong force, the football flew rapidly to the back. "Hey! You want to intercept the ball like this? How can it be so easy?" Iron Egg at the back roughly judged the landing point before the football landed. He kicked his legs hard, jumped from the ground, and directly hit his head toward the football in the sky. Boom! Due to the momentum of the football, Iron Egg did not use much strength, but the football flew back in the direction it came from. "Your Majesty, catch the ball!" Li Er was overjoyed. He estimated the trajectory of the football in the sky, and then without saying anything, he exerted his strength and feet and spiraled from the ground to the sky. "Watch me shoot for you guys," Li Er muttered. When the football was about to reach him, he happened to have reached the highest point. He bent his knees slightly and gave the football a hard kick. With a bang, the football flew toward the opposite goal like a cannonball. Li Er felt that this kick was very satisfying and everyone on the field was stunned. Chapter 880. In the first football match, Ching Chumo was too excited and used all his internal energy. He kicked the ball in the air and almost caused Chu Yinfu to be seriously injured. At that time, Li Zixuan made a rule that in official football matches, all players were not allowed to use martial arts. Violators would be banned for life. Although Ching Chumo and the others felt that playing in this way was not satisfying, they also felt that Li Zixuan's concerns were reasonable. If the ball was infused with internal energy and hit an ordinary person, it was completely possible to kill them. Therefore, they had always followed the rule set by Li Zixuan. This rule was also widely spread among the students of Yanhuang College. No one would have thought that after so many days, there would be another person who openly used martial arts on the field. Moreover, this person was the current emperor. Everyone was dumbfounded. Moreover, Li Er's ball was like a dragon coming out of the sea. It rushed towards the goal with an indomitable will. The strong wind around the ball swept the air, and even made a woo-woo sound. This power made the players in the path of the ball tremble in fear, afraid that they would not be able to avoid it. Today, the goalkeeper on Li Chengqian's side was Zhang Sunchong. When this kid saw Li Er's body flying in the air, he already knew that something was wrong. At this time, he did not care about the stupid goal and directly rolled and crawled to the side of the goal. Peng! Seeing Zhang Sunchong run faster than a rabbit and out of the goal range, Li Ku, who originally wanted to use martial arts to dodge the ball, immediately put away this idea. Therefore, the ball rushed into the net without any suspense. However, its momentum did not decrease. The net was brought along by the ball and wanted to continue to rush backward. Helpless under the restraint of the goal, it struggled for a while before stopping. Even so, the goal was still shaken a few times by the impact of the ball. Ha ha! Good ball! Li Er clapped his hands and stood on the spot, laughing. That kick just now released a lot of his depression and fatigue from so many years. Football really reduced stress. However, the expected cheers did not come. Instead, the previously noisy field suddenly fell into a mysterious silence. Li Er realized that something was wrong and could not help but feel puzzled. Zhao Song's old face flushed red. He wanted to say something, but he was afraid. In the end, it was Li Ku who ran over and whispered to Li Er, "Father, Yamacho said earlier that martial arts are not allowed on the football field to avoid hurting people. Those who violate this rule will be banned from football for life." It was only then that Li Er understood where the problem lay. No wonder he had been watching from the sidelines for so long, but he had not seen Ching Chumo, Yuchi Baolin, Li Ku, or any of the other martial artists using their martial arts. Thinking of this, he could not help but glare at Zhao Song. If there was anyone to blame, it was Zhao Song's fault for not telling him clearly before coming. Zhao Song, on the other hand, was full of grievances. When he came, he did not expect Li Er to suddenly become teenage maniac and play football himself. Cough, cough. This rule was unreasonable. If you have kung fu, why can't you use kung fu? Besides, this is just a game, not a competition. Why should there be so many rules? I still intend to introduce this football into the army to help the Tang soldiers hone their martial arts. If I can't use martial arts, how can I train? Li Er's face was slightly red, but he still forced himself to be calm and justified himself. Li Tai immediately flattered, "Father's words make a lot of sense. This football is interesting and can train people. It's just right to introduce it into the army." Yes. Father is indeed far-sighted and always worried about the country's affairs. I'm impressed. Li Ku came to his senses and hurriedly agreed. The rest of the students also began to sing praises. Only then did Li Er's expression look much better. He clasped his hands behind his back and slowly said, "But Li Zixuan's worries are reasonable. When people who know martial arts play football, they don't know how to control their strength. It's very easy to injure people. Therefore, I feel that martial arts cannot be used in official football matches in the future. When people who know martial arts play football in private, there's no harm in using internal energy. The emperor's words were not to be taken lightly. Every word was an imperial edict. Li Er's words basically set the rules of Tang's football world. In official competitions, they would follow the rules set by Li Zishuan. In private competitions, martial artists could use their kung fu. This meant that Tang's football would be divided into kung fu and civilian versions in the future. Your Majesty is wise. Zhao Song saw that Li Er had walked out of the awkward situation, and couldn't help but heave a sigh of relief. He came over and bowed. Father, Your Majesty is wise. Li Chengqian, Li Tai, Li Ku and the surrounding students all agreed. Li Er smiled faintly and waved his hand, saying, "There's no point in playing football like this. Zhao Song, go and find a few guards with good kung fu to play with me. Kurchumo, Bao Lin, Iron Egg, the four of you stay back. The rest of the students who don't know kung fu can take a break." That mid-air shot just now made Li Er exclaim in his heart. For a moment, he also felt like having fun. How could he return to the palace at this time? Another round of unrestrained kung fu football was what he wanted in his heart. Your Majesty, I'm afraid this is not appropriate." Zhao Song stood beside Li Er and reminded him in a low voice. He was worried that if the imperial censors in the imperial court knew that Li Er was actually playing football with people in the academy, they would most likely write a letter to remonstrate, impeach him. Li Er frowned and said unhappily, "What's wrong? As the ruler of a country, can't I play football?" Zhao Song quickly said that he didn't dare. In order not to dampen Li Er's spirits, he could only find a few guards of the academy who were good at kung fu. Mo Zhong, Mo Yun and Pang Feiji were among them. He wasn't worried that these guards would hurt Li Er when they played football. This was because, firstly, Li Er's kung fu was better than these guards. Secondly, as a kung fu master, he wasn't just there for show. In the end, Li Zishuan and Li Er were in the same team. Mo Zhong, Mo Yun and the other followers of the school of Mo were in their team. Qing Chumo, Yuchi Baolin and Iron Egg were in the same team as Pang Feiji. The remaining people in their team were mostly the personal guards of Li Zishuan. "Go all out and play well for me. Don't hold back. If you can beat me, there will be rewards." In order to let Qing Chumo's team play with all their might, Li Er gave an empty promise. "Your Majesty, if our team wins, will there be rewards?" Mo Zhong waited for a long time but didn't hear the second half of Li Er's sentence. He mustered up his courage and asked. "No." Li Er replied impatiently. With a master like him in charge, how could they not win? Unless these followers of the school of Mo deliberately didn't put in effort. "Hence," he added, "if my team loses, the few of you will be punished." Mo Zhong and the others were instantly dumbfounded. Why was the treatment different? Chapter 881. Captain Peng, catch the ball. 22 martial arts experts, including Li Er, started a battle of the century on the field of Yanhuang College. Qing Chumo's side snatched the right to kick off, and Yuchi Baolin was in charge of kicking off. He was afraid that others would not know who he was going to pass the ball to, so he specially roared. Then, the ball did not roll towards Pang Feiji, who was beside Yuchi Baolin. Instead, it flew directly towards the opponent's goal. Boom! The whole stadium was in an uproar. Everyone, including Pang Feiji, was caught off guard by Yuchi Baolin's very unusual kickoff. The ball that had already flown out did not care about what the players thought. It flew out at the same speed as how much force Yuchi Baolin had just exerted on it. The ball that Yuchi Baolin kicked out with all his strength was not much slower than Li Er's kick just now. In the blink of an eye, it was close to the goal. Although Yuchi Baolin's reaction was a little slower, his strength was really great. If there was a high-speed camera recording at the side, it would be able to see that the moment the ball was kicked out, 1/5 of it had already been flattened. It was obvious how terrifying this kick was. The opponent's player's attention was still on Pang Feiji. No one would have thought that Yuchi Baolin, this big blockhead, would actually play a diversion trick, so no one went to block this ball at the first moment. The goalkeeper on Li Er's side was Emo Zhong. This guy was still feeling depressed after hearing Li Er's words just now. Even if you beat him to death, he would never have thought that the opponent would threaten his side's goal so quickly. He hurriedly gathered his chi in his dantian and pounced towards this menacing ball. Bang! It had to be clear that they were playing a kung fu football now. How could this ball that Yuchi Baolin had kicked out with all his strength be blocked by Emo Zhong, who had rushed over in a hurry? They saw the ball enter Emo Zhong's arms with a loud bang. Immediately after, Emo Zhong's face turned the color of pig liver, and his body involuntarily retreated. Chi. The tremendous force carried by the football caused Emo Zhong to glide on the grass for a distance. Under everyone's astonished gazes, Emo Zhong actually held the football and slid back into the goal. It's in, it's in. Yuchi Baolin stared blankly for a moment, then cried out loudly. When he had just kicked off, he suddenly remembered that Li Zixuan had told them about the rules of football the last time. He had said that they could directly score from the kickoff. So, he had a brainwave and thought of such a mischievous trick to create a diversion. However, he did not expect it to work. F***CK. Baolin, you're really something. Too awesome. We've just started and we've already scored. Ching Chumo ran over and jumped onto Yuchi Baolin's back, patting the latter's head as he spoke in ecstasy. The other team members followed suit and ran over to hug the two living treasures, cheering loudly. Oh my God! He scored just like that? What kind of fighting style is this? Does this ball count? Di Jixuan shook his head and said to the students next to him, Of course it counts. The football has already crossed the line. The onlooking students outside the field were stunned. They could not believe their eyes. Of course, there were also people who questioned the goal. At this moment, Emo Zhong got up from the ground and shouted at Yuchi Baolin, It doesn't count, it doesn't count. I've just blocked your ball. How can it count as a goal? The cheers gradually stopped. Ching Chumo stood out from the crowd and retorted, Why doesn't it count? According to the rules set by Yamacho, as long as the football crosses the goal line, it counts as a goal. So what if you've hugged the football? Chu Mo is right. The football has already entered the goal. How can it not count? This is the rule set by Yamacho. Pang Feiji also ran out to help. Haha, a goal from the kickoff. Good goal, good goal. At this moment, there was a burst of laughter outside the field, and the crowd automatically made way. It's Yamacho. Yamacho is here. Let's see what Yamacho has to say now. It was Li Zixuan who heard that Li Er had come to the academy. He came down from his office and saw Yuchi Baolin create a diversion to the east and attack in the west. This scene was a little familiar. In his previous life, he saw it in the movie Shaolin Soccer. In the movie, Stephen Chow scored a goal from the midfield. However, that was when Stephen Chow received the kickoff from his teammate in the midfield. Yuchi Baolin was even more ruthless. He shot from the kickoff and caught everyone off guard. Greetings, Your Majesty. No matter what, Li Er was the emperor. As a subject, it was impossible for him not to greet him. No need to be so polite. Li Zixuan, tell me, does this goal count? Li Er waved his hand and asked casually. Li Zixuan raised his head and answered, Of course it counts, Your Majesty. As long as the ball enters the goal, it counts as a goal, regardless of the method used. Li Er was not angry. He nodded and said, Okay, I understand. The game continues. Emo Zhong, if you don't guard the goal well again, I'll ask Mr. Yen to deduct all of your salary for this month. Yen Silu was the dean of teaching in the academy. At the same time, he was also the butler of the academy. He was in charge of everyone's salary. Yes. Mo Zhong's face was full of bitterness. He was also complaining incessantly in his heart. Li Zishuan smiled and walked to Pang Feiji and Qing Chumo. He said, "Play well. Let His Majesty see the glory of the Academy's football team. If you win, each of you will be rewarded with a football." Li Zishuan had just reached a foreign trade agreement with Xunla and Piao. He had temporarily found a source of rubber, so he became more generous. What the F***ck? Yamacho, is what you said true? Qing Chumo widened his eyes in disbelief. Of course it's true. You can do it, Chonyo. In a moment of carelessness, he even said good luck, which made Qing Chumo a little confused. What the F***ck? Yamacho, you can't do this. Why do they get a football if they win? Li Tai, who was outside the field, shouted that it was unfair. If it weren't for the fact that he didn't know martial arts, he would have rolled up his sleeves and come up to play no matter what. Li Zishuan couldn't be bothered to pay attention to him. He turned around and wanted to leave the field. "Master, why don't you come up and play?" Iron Egg ran over and whispered. Most of the people on the field were better at martial arts than him. He felt that he was holding them back. "No, you can continue to play. Remember, even if it's kung fu football, you still need to use your brain. Bao Lin's goal just now is a living example. If he, a martial arts grandmaster, went on the field and tortured the other side, Li Er would definitely make things difficult for him in the future. Therefore, he patted Iron Egg's shoulder. He first refused, then said earnestly. At the same time, this was also said to Qing Chumo and the others. This was because the strength of the players on this side was, on the whole, less than that of the opponent. "Yes, master, I understand." Iron Egg's eyes turned and he replied thoughtfully. Chapter 882. Have you ever seen a player fly into the air to intercept the opponent's pass? Have you ever seen a golden hook hanging upside down in the air, a whirlwind kick in the air, a backflip in the air, a scorpion swinging its tail in the air, or a rock spreading its wings in the air? It doesn't matter if you haven't seen it before. Now you can finally see it. This is the legendary Kung Fu football. The players on both sides had a big stick hanging over their heads, punishment of deducting their monthly salary, and a big carrot hanging over their heads, reward football. In short, the players on both sides were now in high fighting spirit and enthusiasm. In the following game, the players on both sides gave it their all. With the support of internal strength and qigong, they constantly made some shocking body movements in the air. Although they were not as enigmatic and superb as in the movies, the Kung Fu football movements that were not processed by computers still made Li Zishuan, who was outside the field, amazed. The rest of the students outside the field naturally feasted their eyes and cheered. "Damn, football can be played like this? Why didn't I practice martial arts in the early years?" As a prince of the Tang Empire, Li Tai had seen all kinds of scenes. However, he had never seen such a scene before. The players showed off their skills on the football field to their heart's content. He was simply envious of them outside the field. Li Chengqian secretly curled his lips and thought to himself, "Qinke, with your body size when you were young, you still want to practice martial arts? You can't even last a day." On the field, after a fierce battle, finally, when the first half was about to end, Li Ku, Mo Yun, and Li Er, the three of them, did an aerial relay. In the end, Li Er scored and equalized the score. As the goalkeeper, Iron Egg was not only unable to block Li Er's shot in the air, but also suffered a little injury. This was the difference in strength. The players on Qing Chumo's side saw that the lead they had created with great difficulty was equalized and felt great heartache. However, no one blamed Iron Egg because everyone knew that no one on their side had the confidence to block Li Er's shot. After a quarter of an hour of halftime, the players from both sides came on the field again. As soon as Li Ku from Li Er's side kicked off, the players from Ching Chumo's side used all kinds of methods to snatch the ball. They wanted to create another lead. However, the followers were not stupid. As soon as they received the ball, they immediately passed the ball to Li Er's feet. Li Er's kung fu was much better than everyone on the field. When he sprinted, very few people could catch up with him. Ching Chumo and Pang Feiji were able to catch up with Li Er, who was dribbling the ball. However, Li Er had Li Ku and Mo Yun as his protectors. The three of them were running neck to neck. It would be difficult for Ching Chumo and Pang Feiji to catch up with them in a short period of time. It had to be said that Li Er's skills were quite good. He dribbled the football past three opposing defenders in the blink of an eye, and then directly faced the opponent's goal. The students outside the arena immediately let out cries of surprise. "He's shooting! His Majesty is invincible!" Back in the days when the 18 rebel kings were in a chaotic war, His Majesty pointed his spear and destroyed all the heroes. He was so brave and fierce. I didn't expect His Majesty to be so powerful on the field. Just by listening to this, one could tell that they were Li Er's true fans, hee. His Majesty's political and martial arts skills are comparable to Qin Huang and Han Wu. What's so strange about that? After playing football for so long, Li Er was a little hot-blooded. When he heard the praises of the students outside the field, his heart felt as comfortable as if he had drunk iced water. At this moment, he was 30 feet away from the penalty area. He lifted his leg and shot angrily. The football whistled and went straight to the goal. "Iron Egg, be careful!" Ching Chumo saw the football shoot out and quickly shouted. His shout was to let Iron Egg dodge the football, not to stop it. This was because Iron Egg was already injured in Li Er's previous shot. Li Er's current kick was more vicious than before. If he forcibly blocked it, Iron Egg was likely to be knocked to the ground. The world of Kung Fu football was so cruel. Besides, injuries were common for people who practiced martial arts. There was nothing strange about it. But Iron Egg did not seem to realize the danger of this ball. He still stood at the goal and did not leave. When the football flew into the penalty area, Iron Egg slightly retreated his right foot and put on a Tai Chi fist starting pose. His eyes were fixed on the flying football. In the blink of an eye, the football had flown close to him. The fierce wind around the ball made his hair fly in all directions. The hearts of the students outside the field and the players on the field were in their throat. They saw Bruiser cut horizontally from the side of the football with a Taiji cloud hand. Then, his arm bent and shook in a strange way. The speeding football gradually slowed down. Bruiser stood up. At this time, the football was already standing on the fingertips of his right hand, spinning rapidly on its own. Handsome. Too handsome. His movements were as smooth as flowing water. Everyone was dumbfounded by what they saw. Tai Chi. That was Tai Chi. It's Tai Chi. I didn't expect Tai Chi to be used like this. Iron Egg has really learned from Yamacho. He can use Tai Chi as he pleases. Tai Chi is so powerful. It can even block His Majesty's full kick. Oh, if I had known, I would have learned it seriously. The students were amazed. Damn. Iron Egg, you're too awesome. You can even do this. Ching Chumo stared and shouted excitedly. Iron Egg smiled slightly. He shouted to Ching Chumo, "Brother Chonyo, tell our people to pay attention to the ball. Don't dribble too much. We'll play the football the way His Highness played last time. Even if we can't score, we can't let them get the football. Catch the ball." After saying that, Iron Egg's left hand turned into a knife and chopped the rapidly spinning football. The football immediately flew in the direction of Ching Chumo. After listening to Iron Egg's tactical analysis, Ching Chumo felt that it was very reasonable. When he received the football, he immediately passed it to Pang Feiji and then shouted, "Everyone, run and pass the ball. Don't dribble too much. Don't let the opponent get the ball." The current situation was very similar to the previous game where he played with Li Qingqian and his two brothers. At that time they were strong, but they were no match for the opponent. The reason was that Li Qingqian's people had been playing possession tactics. Li Zixuan, who was standing outside the field, nodded with satisfaction. Although modern football originated in London in the 19th century, and the people of the Tang Dynasty had never come into contact with it before, once he introduced modern football to the Tang Dynasty, the people of the Tang Dynasty did not need to deliberately guide them. They could figure out some tactics on their own. Some of the tactics were very similar to modern football tactics. This was the wisdom of the ancients. They were not stupid at all. Most of the time, what they lacked was knowledge. On the field, Ching Chumo wanted to play possession tactics. Of course, the players would cooperate. Under such circumstances, the players ran more actively. Today's game was similar to the last time, but there were also differences. The similarity was that the two sides of the game were still one weak and one strong. The weaker side wanted to use possession tactics to defeat the stronger side. The difference was that the stronger side today was undoubtedly stronger. However, Ching Chumo was not afraid. Today, everyone can use their internal strength, they can run faster and jump higher. If the ball is passed over the top, it will be easy for you to jump in the air to intercept it. That's fine, we will use a short-distance ground ball. At most, we will need to run a few more steps. It doesn't matter if you are skilled in martial arts and can run fast because we can also use martial arts. Our running speed is not much slower than yours. At worst, we will pass the ball out before your players catch up. Of course, the opponent's biggest threat was Li Er. Therefore, wherever Li Er was, Ching Chumo's players were determined not to pass the ball to their teammates who were closer to Li Er. They all avoided Li Er when they played. There was no other way. To defend against Old Li, they needed at least 3 people. They could not allocate so many people. As a result, the audience outside the field saw a dazzling passing game. No one dribbled the ball. Basically, the ball was passed out as soon as it touched the foot. No matter how fast Li Er and Li Ku were, they could not catch up. Bang, bang, bang. The sound of the football hitting the ground and the shouts of the players were endless. The scene was very lively. However, the second half played for nearly half an hour and there was not a single goal. Damn! The ball is being passed around, but there is no goal. Yes, no matter how beautiful the ball is, it is useless if there is no goal. What are Ching Chumo and the rest thinking? Di Jixuan curled his lips and said, "What do you know? Until now, neither side has scored. This is already a victory for Ching Chumo and the rest." On the field, Li Ku was somewhat anxious. He had never expected that the tactics he had used to deal with Ching Chumo would now be used against him and his imperial father. He found an opportunity to urgently say to Li Er, "What are you doing? Father, we can't go on like this. Time is almost up." Li Er's expression did not change. After all, he did not care about winning or losing this game at all. He was just here to play. Hearing Li Ku's words, he nodded and said, "Ku is right. I thought that with our strength, we could crush the other side. I didn't expect the other side to bring so many surprises. Moreover, this football can also contain the art of war. It is really beyond my expectations." This was an unexpected gain for Li Er when he came to the academy today. Seeing that the football could be used as a battle formation, he was even more determined to bring the football to the army. At this time, looking at the situation on the field, he continued to say to Li Ku, "Ku, go and tell Mo Yun and the rest to keep an eye on the people on the other side. Our strength is stronger than the other side. Each of us will keep an eye on one person. Let's give them a one-on-one victory and make them unable to pass the ball." Li Ku's eyes lit up and he said happily, "Father is wise. This is really a good idea. I will go and inform them now." Therefore, under Li Ku's instructions, the players on this side gradually began to change their tactics. They no longer chased after Ching Chumo's people to pass the ball back and forth. They spread out and each of them was only responsible for one player on the other side. When they received the ball, they would harass them. As a result, Ching Chumo's smooth ball control tactics suddenly became stuck. Once the machine was rusty, it was easy to have all kinds of problems. It was the same for the football. The players could not pass the ball comfortably and naturally, there would be all kinds of mistakes. As a matter of fact, Pang Feiji's Wu Ho originally wanted to pass the football to Yuchi Baolin, who was in front of him on the right. However, after being snatched by Mo Zhong, he panicked and passed the ball in the wrong direction. He actually passed the ball to Li Ku's feet. Li Ku was inexplicably stunned, but in an instant, he moved. With a pass, he passed an opposing player beside him. At the same time, Li Er had already given up on keeping an eye on Ching Chumo. He directly ran towards the opposite side's back. Return to defense. Everyone returned to defense. Ching Chumo saw that the situation was not good. As he shouted at his own players, he chased in Li Er's direction. Sure enough, when Li Ku saw that Li Er had already run to the opponent's goal area, he channeled his strength to his feet and sent the football to Li Er's position. Bam! When Ching Chumo heard the muffled sound of the football being kicked out, he turned his head to take a look. In an instant, he did not care about anything else. He roared loudly and used his feet to stomp on the grass. His whole body rose into the air. He wanted to intercept this high-altitude long pass. Oh wow! It's coming, it's coming! Ching Chumo is flying again. For many students from ordinary families, martial arts masters were relatively distant existences. However, in today's kung fu football game, they directly saw more than 20 martial arts masters compete with each other. They flew into the sky and dove into the ground, fighting fiercely. It was really not satisfying to watch. Seeing Ching Chumo rise into the air at this time, the students could not help but cheer again. He wants to stop His Royal Highness King of Han's pass. But this pass is so high. Can he really stop it? The movement of the football in the air was in a parabolic shape. It was divided into the ascending and descending stages. Ching Chumo's position happened to be in the descending stage of the parabolic curve. However, it had only just descended, so the height of the football in this position was still very high. It's close. Closer. It's still not enough. F***ck. Ching Chumo's eyes stared unblinkingly at the football flying towards him. He felt the air around him brush past his cheek. The height of his body was getting higher and higher, but it was still not enough. Ching Chumo even felt that as long as he stretched out his hand, he could block the football. This was really within reach. However, he was not a goalkeeper. He could not touch the football with his hands. Therefore, he could only watch as the football flew over his head and rushed towards Li Er's position. Iron Egg, get out of the way. This ball is not something you can stop. Li Er lived up to everyone's expectations. He flew up and met the flying football in the air. He looked at Tai Dan and roared. Then, he aimed at the lower right corner of the goal and shot angrily in the air. Bam! Bam! Two loud sounds rang out on the field. One was the sound of Li Er's foot colliding with the football, and the other was the sound of Li Er landing on the ground. The football whistled towards the goal. Its speed was much faster than the previous two goals. It could be seen that Li Er used more force this time. Iron Egg gritted his teeth. He did not listen to Li Er's words and chose to retreat. He put on a Tai Chi starting pose again, wanting to repeat the same trick and stop the football. When the football flew into the penalty area, Iron Egg chose to take the initiative to attack. His body rose into the air, his palms together, and he faced the flying football. Bam! Another loud sound rang out. A trace of blood spilled from the corner of Iron Egg's mouth. He groaned and wanted to use the Tai Chi entanglement technique to entangle the football and neutralize the force in it. But at this time, He was in midair and had no place to exert force. The effect of the Tai Chi entanglement technique was greatly reduced. The force on the football was neutralized by less than 1/5. Then, it hit him, causing him to fly backward towards the goal. Tai Chi could indeed allow the weak to defeat the strong, but there was a limit to everything. If the opponent was too strong, it would be useless no matter how well Tai Chi was used. Bang! Iron Egg was like a baby eagle that had been hit hard in the air. He crashed into the goal with the ball. The ball is in. Beat. At this time, Zhao Song, who was acting as the temporary referee on the sidelines, blew the whistle to end the game. 2-1. Li Er's team won. However, the students outside the field did not cheer loudly. They looked at Iron Egg and Ching Chumo, Yuchi Baolin, and the others who rushed towards Iron Egg. Although they lost respectfully. Iron Egg. Good job. It's okay to lose. We'll try again next time. Yes. What a wonderful game. Winning or losing is not important. Amidst the encouragement of the students, this kung fu football game of God's fighting finally came to an end. The ending was within everyone's expectations, but the process was beyond everyone's expectations. You're tuning in to the Phoenix Knights YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.